Chapter 549. The Dark Shadow Demon Monarch was a genius devil cultivator of the true devil sect in recent years. He was best at stealth and assassination. Over the years, many genius disciples of the various sects had died at his hands. True Lord Qian Yuan looked at the battlefield and saw the Dark Shadow Demon Monarch slowly approaching Taoist Master Dark North. He instantly understood that the opponent's current target was Ziyue. His footsteps slowed down, but he couldn't help but speed up. He didn't care who killed Taoist Master Dark North, but he wouldn't allow anyone to touch the treasures that belonged to Taoist Master Dark North. Someone else is coming? As soon as the Dark Shadow Demon Monarch got close to Ziyue, he sensed True Lord Qian Yuan's figure almost immediately. In a hurry, a black domain spread out and leaned towards Ziyue. At the same time, a small black knife seemed to drill out from the void and shot towards Ziyue. Someone else is coming? Is it True Lord Qian Yuan? Not good. Dark Shadow, hurry up and attack. In the void, True Lord Yin Luo, who was fighting with True Lord Jinyu, was shocked and hurriedly sent a voice transmission. Good. The heavens are really helping me. Taoist Master Dark North, you can attack now. This time, Dark Shadow Demon Monarch will definitely die. True Lord Jun Yu also sensed True Lord Qian Yuan's figure and sent a voice transmission at the same time. The three Golden Elixir Realm experts almost immediately sensed the arrival of a new expert of the same level, and they immediately reacted. Ziyue naturally heard the voice transmission and also sensed True Lord Qian Yuan's arrival. However, he suddenly felt uneasy in his heart. It was as if a disaster was about to befall him. Therefore, he didn't hesitate at all. With a flash of spiritual light, he disappeared from the spot. Immediately after, he felt a special force spread out. Then, a small black knife quickly slashed across the place where he was originally standing. Is it a domain? There really is a golden core expert hiding in the dark. Ziyue was shocked. Long ago, he had suspected the reason why Demon Monarch Yin Huai stayed in the Wanderlust Mountain for a long time. Naturally, he had guessed that the other party either had a backup plan or a golden core expert hiding in the dark. The Umbra Demon Monarch had cultivated the Umbra domain and was most adept at concealment and assassination. He was also the first person he suspected. Thus, even though he was easily killing demonic cultivators, his heart was already filled with vigilance. In addition, his soul perception was extremely strong, and he had once deduced the lesser evasion technique, so he was able to sense danger before it arrived and retreat in advance. As for the power of the domain, it might affect others, but when Ziyue had broken through to the late stage of the God Realm, the second transformation of the Devouring Heaven's divine transformation art had allowed him to comprehend the wonders of the domain. Although his domain wasn't as powerful as a true Golden Core Realm expert, it was enough to protect himself and prevent him from being affected by his opponent's attacks. He dodged it. Shadow Demon Monarch was stunned. Not to mention his concealment ability, which made it difficult for an ordinary Gold Core Realm expert to discover him. Just the spread of his domain should be able to affect the speed of any divine realm cultivator. With the extreme speed of his Umbra Blade, as long as his opponent's speed slowed down a little, he would definitely not be able to escape his attack and would be hit. However, his opponent's speed didn't decrease at all in his domain, as if there was a layer of invisible force blocking his domain, causing him to miss. That force seems to be a domain as well, but it's much weaker than an ordinary Gold Core Realm expert's domain. This person's strength is definitely not ordinary. But no matter, I have to kill True Lord Jinyu as soon as possible. Shadow Demon Monarch was surprised, but he also knew that True Lord Qian Yuan's arrival would definitely affect the balance of the battlefield. No matter how strong Ziyue was, he was at most a half-step Gold Core Realm expert, so he wasn't able to affect the outcome of the battle. Therefore, although he was surprised, he immediately gave up on pursuing True Lord Jinyu. His figure flashed and rushed into the void. With a wave of his hands, a black scythe was quickly slashed toward True Lord Jinyu. On the other side, True Lord Yin Luo also knew that the situation was urgent. He quickly made up his mind and poured all his strength into the spear in his hand, shooting it out. Oh no! True Lord Jun Yu's expression changed. He didn't expect this at all. Shadow Demon Monarch's appearance was too sudden. He didn't even notice it before. You're letting me go? Ziyue raised his eyes slightly. At this moment, he also exploded with power. As his aura surged, streaks of incomparably powerful sword light shot up into the sky, as if they were the only thing in the world. They turned into streaks of frightening souls and fell from the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, the entire world became a huge sword-shaped cage formed by countless streaks of sword light. Great Mystique, 5 Emperors Sky, Sealing Sword. This sword move sealed the shadowy demon lord almost instantly. Shadow Demon Monarch's expression changed. He frantically attacked, trying to break open the sword-shaped cage. However, when his all-out attack hit the sword wall, it only caused the sword wall to vibrate and the air to vibrate. It didn't cause the slightest damage to the sword wall. Although Shadow Demon Monarch was strong, he was still slightly weaker than Soul Controlling Demon Monarch. Even Soul Controlling Demon Monarch needed a few breaths of time to break open the sword wall. Shadow Demon Monarch would need even more time to break open the sword wall. It's impolite not to reciprocate. Ziyue bellowed and quickly attacked again. He stretched out his hand and slashed. Buzz! The void lit up slightly. In an instant, a pitch-black, extremely condensed, thin line appeared like a bolt of lightning. In a flash, it slashed toward Shadow Demon Monarch. Grand Mystique, Great Magnetic Slash. The Great Magnetic Slash, at the perfected level, was extremely powerful. Its speed was unbelievably fast. As soon as the Grand Mystique was used, it had already slashed through the void. It was as if it had stepped into another world and rushed toward Shadow Demon Monarch. No! Shadow Demon Monarch exclaimed. Shadow Demon Monarch exclaimed. He didn't expect Ziyue, who he thought was only a half-step Golden Core Realm cultivator, to be able to unleash such a terrifying attack. This attack was beyond his imagination. Not only was it far beyond the half-step Golden Core Realm, it was even beyond the early Golden Core Realm and the middle Golden Core Realm. It was at the peak of the middle Golden Core Realm. The power of this attack was so terrifying that it wasn't any weaker than true Demon Monarch's attack. Shadow Demon Monarch immediately felt his head go numb. He hurriedly used all his defensive Dharma treasures and talismans. However, all of this happened too quickly. He only had time to take out a black shield and block in front of him. Chi! The great proto-magnetic slash silently cut through everything. Chapter 550. The great magnetic slash landed directly on the black shield. The spiritual light on the black shield instantly shattered and cut into the body of the shield. With a bang, the shield broke into 2 pieces. Then, without losing momentum, it rushed toward the dark Shadow Demon Monarch. Even though he dodged frantically, his space of movement was limited in the sky-sealing sword of the 5 Emperors. All of this happened to cut into the protective divine light on his body and his head. Blood splashed in the sky. The dark Shadow Demon Monarch was cut into 2 from top to bottom. He was dead. Even now, the dark Shadow Demon Monarch's eyes were still filled with disbelief. He had never thought that a 9-star divine realm cultivator, who he thought was at most a half-step to the Golden Core Realm, would burst out with such terrifying strength. His power was so strong that he was almost killed in an instant. What? Everyone's expression changed, especially Enhui Demon Monarch and Immortal Mountain Crushing Immortal. Enhui Demon Monarch was extremely shocked. He had never thought that there would be another Golden Core Realm cultivator besides Immortal Qian Yuan who was approaching. Immortal Biming. Is he the legendary Immortal Biming, the divine realm cultivator who has the strength to kill an immortal? His face was ghastly pale. Naturally, he had heard that Ziyue had killed the soul-controlling demon monarch and caused the latter's resurrection to fail. He immediately wanted to retreat. At this moment, True Lord Mountain Crushing True Lord was both surprised and overjoyed. The joint attack of the 2 demon lords had left him in despair. Although he had managed to block their joint attack with the help of his sex resources, he was not confident that he could continue fighting. However, just as he was about to retreat, Ziwa suddenly showed his extraordinary strength and fiercely killed the Dark Shadow Demon Monarch. He was really overjoyed. He killed an immortal against the odds. Another immortal against the odds. Senior Biming has already killed 2 Golden Core Realm cultivators, hasn't he? In the distance, there were also people watching this high-end battle. After all, it was related to the outcome of this battle. This was especially true for the powerhouse with the Constellation token. He had heard of Zue's battle achievements, so he had been observing the situation on Zue's side while fighting. Naturally, he had seen Zue's sudden burst of power in killing the Umbra Demon Monarch. Such a scene was truly like the descent of a legend, shocking them. His strength is indeed extraordinary. Perfected Lord Qian Yuan closed in rapidly with a hint of caution in the depths of his eyes. Even though he had long heard of Zhenren Beiming's strength from Zhenren Xiangshan and the others, and knew that if Zhenren Beiming unleashed his full strength, he would not be weaker than a gold core expert. But when Zue really displayed such extraordinary strength in front of him, he still felt shocked in his heart. There was even a moment of hesitation. Was he really going to make an enemy out of such a peerless genius? But soon, he became even more determined. With Reverend Darknorth's strength alone, even if he was a peerless genius who was 1 in a billion, it was impossible for him to cultivate the great magnetic slash and the sealing sword technique to such a powerful level when he was only at the divine realm. Great accomplishment or perfection? This was a level that even a gold core cultivator, who had a profound understanding of the great Tao, could not achieve in hundreds or even thousands of years. If it was not for the help of such a powerful treasure, how could a divine realm cultivator achieve it? Thinking of this, he became more and more excited, but he still shouted, "Perfected Lord Zhenyu, Taoist Dark North, let me give you a hand." As he spoke, he stretched out his hand, and a pale, golden chain flew across the sky and quickly slashed toward Yin Huai Demon Monarch. Oh no! Yin Huai Demon Monarch's expression changed greatly. A mass of blood suddenly appeared on his body, and his body immediately flashed and shot toward the distance. "Do you think you can escape? Suppress him." Perfected Lord Zhen Yu shouted in a low voice. He stretched out his hand and threw a seal into the sky. The seal expanded with the wind, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a huge and magnificent giant mountain. In the giant mountain, a wave of essence suddenly emerged. Wherever the essence landed, heaven and earth seemed to be crushed, as if millions of kilograms of force were pressing down on him. Yin Huai Demon Monarch, who was in the bloodlight, suddenly slowed down by 50%. Ziyue took advantage of the situation and shot out another divine light, which directly landed on Yin Huai Demon Monarch. This beam of divine light was a divine ability, the lesser forbidden spirit art. When a minor spirit restriction art landed on Yin Huai Demon Monarch, the spiritual power in his body was immediately sealed and dissipated. Even though it rose up again very quickly, it had already lost the possibility of breaking free. Perfected Lord Qian Yuan's chain slashed, and the spiritual light that had just risen up immediately dissipated. Then, Perfected Lord Zhen Yu pointed one hand to the sky and the other to the ground. His natal flying sword immediately emitted a shocking wave of elemental energy. Tai swordsmanship. Kill. In an instant, the flying sword soared into the sky and turned into a huge sword light that seemed to be able to hold up the sky. The sword light slashed. Heaven and earth seemed to be split open by a pair. It also submerged Yin Huai Demon Monarch. Rumble. Heaven and earth trembled and the ground cracked open. Yin Huai Demon Monarch's entire body turned into powder with the sword. The storage bag on his body could not withstand such terrifying spiritual pressure and exploded. Countless treasures that belonged to Demon Lord Yin Huai immediately shot out in all directions like raindrops. Dead? Shadow Demon Monarch is dead? Yin Huai Demon Monarch is also dead? Despair appeared in the eyes of all the demonic cultivators. They did not expect that the 2 demon monarchs on their side would die in just a few breaths of time. Run, run, run. Almost instantly, some clever demonic cultivators fled in all directions. We won. We won. Kill. The disciples of the various immortal sects were overjoyed and hurriedly chased after the demonic cultivators. Spirit energy plus 574-1225. Ziyue glanced at the spirit energy number and confirmed that his opponent had died. With a slight wave of his hand, he put away Shadow Demon Monarch's storage bag and Dharma treasures. Then his body stopped. After all, True Lord Yin Huai was killed by True Lord Mountain Crush, so he naturally couldn't snatch the scattered spoils of war. He could clearly sense that there were at least 3 golden core treasures, 4 or 5 heaven and earth treasures that were 4th grade or above, and many other precious items. Taoist Dark North, what a coincidence that you're also on the battlefield. True Lord Qian Yuan also didn't care about the scattered treasures. He smiled and approached. Indeed, I didn't expect True Lord Qian Yuan to be here, Ziyue said with a smile. I just happened to be here. I didn't expect to see Taoist Dark North here. True Lord Qian Yuan said as he approached within 10 meters of Ziyue with a fierce expression. Chapter 551. In the blink of an eye, a silver blade flashed and swept towards Ziyue at an extremely fast speed. One amazing technique. It was not until then that his next words were heard. Whoosh! The silver blade was like lightning, and almost immediately it pierced through Ziyue's defensive divine ability, the 7-color calamity avoiding spirit light. Then, without any reduction in strength, it fiercely hit the 5 Divine Emperor's Imperial Robe on his body. The perfect level of the 5 Divine Emperor's Imperial Robe's defensive power was far superior to the 7-color calamity avoiding spirit light. Back then, Venerable Demon Slayer had used all his strength, but he had not been able to shake it at all. At this time, perfected cultivator Qian Yuan's attack had landed on it. Even though his strength was far superior to Venerable Demon Slayer, and he was at the peak of the early Golden Core realm, and he had used all his strength to ensure that he could succeed in one fell swoop, the silver blade only made the spiritual light on the 5 Divine Emperor's Imperial Robe dissipate slightly, and its spiritual energy was greatly reduced. However, it did not completely collapse. The silver blade returned without any effect. What? Perfected cultivator Qian Yuan's expression changed. He did not expect that his sure kill attack would still fail to succeed. It should be known that his silver blade was a mid-grade golden core flying knife, the Silver Moon. When used with his great divine ability, its power was comparable to the full-strength attack of a mid-stage golden core realm cultivator. However, in the end, it still returned without any effect. The power of his opponent's great defensive ability was truly beyond his expectations. However, even though he was surprised, he was not unprepared. When a silver moon flew out, the light golden chain and magic treasure in his hand followed closely behind and slashed down. This chain was also a mid-grade golden core realm treasure called the Broken Jade Divine Chain. It was best at breaking through the defensive divine ability of a cultivator. The only downside was that its lethality was not enough. Therefore, he took out the Silver Moon flying knife first. You dare? Ziyue's expression changed greatly. Earlier, when he was ambushed by the Umbra Demon Monarch, he suddenly felt a little uneasy. It was because of his vigilance that he was able to dodge the attack. However, he had taken the opportunity to kill Shadow Demon Monarch, and even Yin Huai Demon Monarch had been killed by Mountain Crush True Immortal. He still felt a little uncomfortable. Although the sense of threat was not as strong as before, there was still a faint gloominess in his heart. It was also because of this that he did not immediately disperse the defensive great ability on his body. However, even he did not expect that perfected Lord Qian Yuan would attack him, because it was too sudden. There was no enmity between them at all, and they had only come into contact with each other twice. They had even sat down and discussed the Tao and had a pleasant conversation. In the end, the other party attacked him. Ziyue was enraged when he saw his opponent take advantage of the second attack. He quickly retreated and activated Talisman. In an instant, a special force enveloped him. Then, like a stream of light, he quickly rushed thousands of feet away. What happened? True Lord Qian Yuan, why did you attack Reverend Darknorth? There shouldn't be any enmity between them, right? Everyone around was stunned. They did not expect the two to suddenly attack each other. Even Mountain Crush True Immortal was very surprised and bewildered. True Lord Qian Yuan's eyes were cold and murderous. He quickly recognized that the talisman Ziyue used was the 4th grade small teleportation talisman. At the same time, he noticed Mountain Crush True Immortal's bewildered gaze and hurriedly shouted, "He's a demonic cultivator! Kill him!" Then, he exerted all his strength to use the Thunder Escape Light and quickly chased after him. True Lord Mountain Crushing True Lord, who had wanted to stop by Ziyue, paused for a moment. However, he quickly remembered that it was by Ziyue who had saved him and killed Shadow Devil Monarch. Obviously, Bai Ziyue was not a demonic cultivator. However, at this time, the two had turned into streams of light and quickly disappeared into the distance. Looking at the battlefield below, he finally stopped. After all, he and Reverend Darknorth were just acquaintances. Naturally, it was not worthwhile for him to become enemies with perfected Lord Qian Yuan. For him, it was more important to eliminate all the demonic cultivators in the Langdang Mountain as soon as possible. With a sway of his body, he charged toward the group of Deity Realm Devil cultivators and charged toward them. Is North Darknorth really a demonic cultivator? When the two left and those cultivators joined forces to kill the demonic cultivators, they began to talk about it again. Demonic cultivator? How is it possible? North Darknorth has killed more demonic cultivators than you and me combined. Even Shadow Demon Monarch was killed by him. Anyone can be a demonic cultivator, but he can't be one. Soon, someone refuted. Then why? What else can it be? We cultivators of immortal cultivation methods attacked for no reason. Of course, it was to kill and steal treasures. Maybe North Darknorth had some precious treasures on him that made Mountain Crush True Immortal attack him. After all, North Darknorth could kill immortals and gold core demonic cultivators. Who would believe that he didn't have any precious treasures on him? Then, do you think North Darknorth can escape from the pursuit? It's hard to say. Although North Darknorth is strong, he's only at the God Realm. Mountain Crush True Immortal is a veteran gold core expert who has reached the peak of the early stage and can step into the middle stage at any time. Not to mention, he's a member of the 9-star Dao Palace, a super immortal cultivation method force. He's the Palace Master of the 9-star Dao Palace's branch palace in Chuanyan City. He can cultivate all kinds of top divine abilities at will and has no shortage of resources and magic treasures. His strength is stronger than gold core cultivators of the same level and is comparable to the sect masters of the 4 great immortal sects. It's very difficult for North Darknorth to escape from him. This is the world of immortal cultivation methods. It seems kind, but who knows when the other party will lose his patience and attack you. Ziyue's eyes were cold as he used Earth Shrinking. Although he was only at the peak of the divine realm, his divine sense was much purer and thicker than that of an ordinary cultivator at the peak of the divine realm. With the help of the shrinking distance, which had reached the consummate level, his speed was not slow. It was comparable to the full flight of a cultivator at the early stage of the gold core realm. However, such speed was naturally not comparable to Mountain Crush True Immortal, who had cultivated Thunder Escape Light to the small success stage. With Mountain Crush True Immortal's cultivation, the small success stage of Thunder Escape Light was enough to let him burst out with extreme speed comparable to a middle stage gold core cultivator. Therefore, the distance between them was always close. However, Ziyue's expression was very calm, and he was not anxious at all. Not to mention that he had already cultivated Thunder Escape Light to the small success stage, and his real speed was far superior to Mountain Crush True Immortal. His strength was also not the same as before. Mountain Crush True Immortal was strong and was not weaker than the sect masters of the 4 great immortal sects. However, he was stronger. Chapter 552. The only reason he chose to flee was because he didn't want to expose his methods in front of others. Moreover, True Lord Qian Yuan was the Palace Master of the 9-star Dao Palace's branch in the cloud-piercing mountain range. His status was extraordinary, so if he wanted to kill him, he naturally had to avoid some people. Even if others could guess that he had killed him, as long as they didn't see it with their own eyes, they could still buy him some time. 1,000 feet, 800 feet, 600 feet, the distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer. You can't escape. True Lord Qian Yuan growled and spread his domain. In an instant, the void slightly condensed, and the world seemed to be crushed by gravity, directly acting on Ziyue's body. Ziyue's body sank, and the power of his domain immediately came into play, directly blocking this special power outside his body. Therefore, his speed didn't decrease in the slightest, and after one step, he took another step, really like lightning flashing and thunder rolling, astonishingly fast. Suddenly, there was a warship in front of him. Ziyue glanced and immediately saw the figures of Spiritual Master Xiangshan, Spiritual Master Jingsu, and the others. In a flash, he understood that they must have come together with true Lord Qian Yuan and had come specifically for him. Stop him! As expected, true Monarch Qian Yuan took the opportunity to shout. On the warship, there was suddenly an intense spiritual light, and a shocking spell was brewing. It's about time. Ziyue looked at the surrounding environment. He was now far enough away from the previous battlefield, and just happened to be on the back of a huge mountain, so there shouldn't be any cultivators nearby to discover him. Moreover, his position was still within the radiation range of the attribute panel, so he could also receive the spiritual power of the battlefield in the rippling mountain range. And now it was also rapidly increasing. Thinking of this, he reached out with his hand, and the void lit up slightly. A pitch-black, extremely condensed thin line quickly rushed out like a flash of light. Great divine power, magnetic slash. Buzz. In an instant, like a flash of black silk, the magnetic slash cut through the sky and arrived in front of the warship. At this time, the spell on the warship rose, but after being cut by the black silk, it immediately shattered, collapsed, and disappeared. Then, without losing any of its strength, the black thread struck the warship. From top to bottom, the entire warship was sliced in two. The various cultivators on the warship hurriedly scattered in all directions. However, there were still two cultivators who were unable to dodge in time and were swept past. Then, they were killed by the destructive power contained within the great magnetic slash. Rumble. At this time, the black silk, the terrifying power contained in it, was still unmatched. The might of the Great Perfection Stage Origin Magnetic Slash was so strong and terrifying that it had already reached an unimaginable level. However, Ziyue's attack finally slowed down his speed, and his figure also paused slightly. Perfected Lord Qian Yuan immediately rushed to within 300 feet of Ziyue. With a thought, the broken Jade Divine Lock turned into a golden light and rushed out quickly. Then the silver moon flying knife cut through the sky. The two gold core treasures were extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, they were in front of Ziyue. We hit him! Immortal Xiangshan and Immortal Jingsu, who had just rushed out of the warship, were overjoyed. They naturally knew the means of perfected Lord Qian Yuan. These two gold core treasures were not only powerful, but their speed was even more amazing. They were sure that with the speed Ziyue had shown before, it was impossible for him to escape the attack range of these treasures. Once hit, even the sect masters of the four immortal sects in the cloud-piercing mountain range, who were at the middle stage of the Golden Core realm, would be unable to resist and would be seriously injured. Although Ziyue's strength was strong, no matter how strong he was, he would definitely die after being hit by such terrifying attacks one after another. It didn't hit him. Perfected Lord Qian Yuan's face changed. The two gold core treasures passed through one after another, but Ziyue's figure was slightly distorted. It turned out that it was just an illusion, and he had already disappeared. How can he be so fast? Is this the Thunder Escape Light? Has he cultivated the Thunder Escape Light to the phenomenal success level? Has he reached the perfect stage? Perfected Lord Qian Yuan was shocked. He saw that Ziyue's speed was beyond the limit of his imagination and far surpassed his own. Then, he saw a dazzling sword light suddenly flashing between heaven and earth. The sword light was incomparably bright, as if it was the only one in the world, and it quickly fell down. Oh no, it's that forbidden sealing sword technique. Perfected Lord Qianyuan's face changed slightly. He had already known Ziyue's means, so he naturally would not be unprepared. He stretched out his hand and took out a magic treasure in the shape of a ruler. He slightly pointed at it. A green light bloomed on the ruler and wrapped him up. In just a flash, it directly took him 1,000 feet away. With just 2 flashes in a row, he flashed out of Ziyue's 5 Emperor's heaven-sealing sword. Umph! Can you dodge it? Ziyue's face did not change. With a flash of lightning on his body, he rushed to the front of perfected Lord Qianyuan at an extremely fast speed. He stretched out his hand, and a spiritual light suddenly swept out. So fast, perfected Lord Qianyuan's heart skipped a beat. Then, he felt a chill on his body. Under the effect of a special force, his gold core seemed to be sealed, and the power in his body suddenly collapsed. Fortunately, the power of his gold core gushed out and instantly broke through the sealing force. But then, he felt that his eyes darkened and a blurry but incomparably huge human-shaped shadow suddenly appeared in the void. Is it the soul attack that seems to be a gifted divine ability? Perfected Lord Qianyuan had already asked people in detail about the scene of the battle between perfected North Deep and the soul controlling Demon Monarch. Naturally, he was clear about Ziyue's many means. Seeing this gray human-shaped shadow, he did not hesitate at all and immediately cast out a spiritual talisman from his body. In an instant, a pale white light bloomed on the spiritual talisman. The light flashed and immediately wrapped him up. At the same time, a low roar came from the depths of the soul, and then a blurry green light directly rushed out. In a flash, the green light rushed above the pale white light in the blink of an eye. With a pop sound, the pale white light directly shattered, and then the green light immediately rushed into his mind. How is this possible? His face turned ghastly pale. His thoughts, under the impact of the green light, instantly came to a standstill and became dull. 1 breath, 2 breaths. Chapter 553. He did not expect that the talisman he had carefully prepared to defend against soul attacks would not be of much use at all. The moment he opened his eyes, he felt the world shake, and he found himself in a huge sword-shaped cage. In the end, he was unable to escape this calamity and was sealed in the 5 Emperor's heaven-sealing sword. Ziyue struck out with the 5 Emperor's heaven-sealing sword again and said in a low voice, "In the face of absolute strength, all your preparations are meaningless." He naturally understood that it was not a coincidence that true Lord Qianyuan had rushed to the battlefield of Langdang Mountain this time. He had deliberately planned to deal with him. As for the reason, many times, even Ziyue himself could not help but sigh with emotion. The speed of his strength improvement was really too fast compared to ordinary cultivators of the immortal spell. Anyone who discovered such a miraculous thing would be shocked. Then, they would form associations and be tempted by greed. This was also the reason why he had been very careful to avoid exposing his true strength. This time I was careless. I thought that it would be difficult for people familiar with me to discover that I was using the Taoist named North Deep Spiritual Master, so I let my guard down. I didn't expect that it would attract true Lord Qianyuan, the Palace Master of the 9 Stars Tao Palace in Chuan Cloud City, to make a move. Sure enough, in the immortal spell world, I can't relax at any time. Ziyue shook his head and sighed. As for the fact that the talisman prepared by the other party did not work, it was very normal in his opinion. The current him was much stronger than when he had fought with the soul controlling Demon Monarch. Not only had his immortal spell realm directly risen from the peak of the middle stage of the divine realm to the peak stage of the divine realm, but after the second divine transformation, the strength of his soul had also increased by several times. Under such circumstances, the other party's talisman naturally could not resist his current innate magical power. This was the suppression of absolute power. It was a kind of power that could destroy everything in its path. Impossible. How can you be so strong? True Lord Qian Yuan panicked and hurriedly stretched out his hand. From a jade bottle, a drop of pitch-black spiritual liquid that was filled with countless mysteries and contained a terrifying aura suddenly rushed out. The moment this drop of spiritual liquid rushed out, the power of true Lord Qian Yuan's gold core directly wrapped around it. In an instant, his aura suddenly skyrocketed, and his strength actually increased by nearly twice as much as before. He waved his hand, and a great divine art was unleashed, hitting the sword wall of the five emperors' heaven-sealing sword. Rumble! The sword wall trembled. After the endless light, it suddenly dimmed. With just a single strike, the defensive power of the sword wall had been reduced by more than 30%. That is, Ziyue's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly guessed what that drop of black spirit liquid was. Magnetic true fluid. It was the magnetic true fluid that only primordial soul realm experts could refine. He had seen descriptions of Yuan's spirit true fluid in the 9-star Dao Palace, so he naturally understood the various characteristics and mysteries of this treasure. He originally thought that he had no fate with such a treasure, but he did not expect to witness the power of such a magical item from perfected Lord Qian Yuan so quickly, as expected of the palace master of the 9-star Dao Palace. His wealth is truly profound. Ziyue sighed inwardly. Without any hesitation, he hurriedly used his innate divine art, dazed. Although he had never seen or used the primordial spirit true fluid before, he was clear about the extent of the primordial spirit true fluid's attack when it landed on the sword wall from the aura of true Lord Qian Yuan and the power of the other party's attack. Although the power of his five emperors' heaven-sealing sword was strong, it could not block the other party for long. In an instant, a huge, grayish humanoid shadow rushed out of the void once again. The human-shaped shadow looked up and let out a low roar. Huh! Suddenly, a gray-green light rushed out and rushed toward perfected Lord Qian Yuan. No! IN % hashtag at hashtag W. Perfected Lord Qian Yuan roared. At this moment, his final attack shattered the sword wall of the five emperors' heaven-sealing sword. But at this moment, the gray, dazed green light of dazed entered his body. His thoughts were also attacked with incomparable pain, and he fell into a state of stagnation. At this moment, he also experienced the helplessness and anger of the soul controlling Demon Monarch when he was attacked by Ziyue's innate divine arts. The stifling feeling of not being able to use his full strength made him want to vomit blood. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. He immediately broke free from Ziyue's innate divine art and did not dare to hesitate. He hurriedly threw out a bronze mirror to block in front of him. He knew that by Ziyue's strongest defensive ability was the great essential magnetic slash. In order to successfully kill Ziyue this time and obtain that precious treasure, he had made ample preparations. With the backing of the 9 stars Dao Palace, coupled with his wealth, he had directly exchanged for this bronze mirror Dharma treasure. This bronze mirror Dharma treasure was called the Heaven and Earth Reversal Mirror. Not only was its defensive power extremely strong, enough to withstand the full strength attack of a late-stage Golden Core Realm cultivator, but it also had the ability to reflect. No matter how tyrannical the attack was, as long as it did not exceed the bronze mirror's tolerance limit, it could be reflected by the bronze mirror and become a threat to the enemy. It could also be called a precious treasure. Sure enough, the moment the Heaven and Earth Reversal Mirror was taken out, Ziyue's great magnetic slash also smoothly slashed down and hit the surface of the mirror fiercely. Bang! With a loud bang, an incomparably tyrannical force suddenly shook the bronze mirror and sent it flying. Obviously, although the Heaven and Earth Reversal Mirror was powerful, it also required a long time of sacrificial refining and matching strength to fully display its power. After all, perfected Lord Qian Yuan's immortal technique realm was only at the peak of the early-stage Golden Core realm. Even with the support of the primordial spirit quintessential fluid, he was only at the mid-stage Golden Core realm. Coupled with the fact that he had not obtained this Dharma treasure for a long time, he was able to break free from Ziyue's powerful attack that was comparable to the peak of the mid-stage Golden Core realm. However, Ziyue's attack did not succeed in the end, as it was blocked by the bronze mirror. Under the effect of the bronze mirror, the magnetic force that seemed to be able to cut through everything was refracted and turned into a black waterfall that fiercely cut through the void. Then, like a stream of light, it disappeared in the blink of an eye. It was blocked. Perfected Lord Qian Yuan was shocked, followed by joy. With the previous lesson, he was really a little worried. Fortunately, the Heaven and Earth Reversal Mirror was worthy of being a high-grade Golden Core realm treasure. Its power was so strong that it could succeed in one fell swoop. This bronze mirror, Ziyue was also shocked in his heart, but at this moment his expression seemed to be even colder. Without hesitation, he directly used his innate magical power for the third time. At the same time, when a human-shaped shadow reappeared, a gray aura turned into a green light and rushed into perfected Lord Qian Yuan's head. Yin %% asterisk at hashtag yin true monarch Qian Yuan cursed, and then once again fell into boundless obtuse. Let's see how many times you can block it. Ziyue looked up, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. While using his soul power to recover the power of his divine thought, he also used the god's spiritual body grand magical power. Suddenly, his aura skyrocketed. Although this god's spiritual body grand magical power had only been upgraded to the Great Accomplishment realm, the increase in his aura and strength had already reached a very shocking level. It also caused his body to suddenly bloom with rays of light. His body expanded like a balloon, and there was even a flash of divine light, as if a god had really descended to the world. At the same time, Ziyue stretched out his hand, and immediately, a far narrower and more terrifying primordial magnetic line than before suddenly shot out. Grand magical power, primordial magnetic slash. Sizzle. The void seemed to have cracked open, and almost in an instant, it rushed in front of perfected Lord Qian Yuan. It was also at this time that perfected Lord Qian Yuan's consciousness suddenly woke up. Then, the moment he opened his eyes again, he saw a far narrower and more terrifying primordial magnetic divine light than before. At the same time, its speed was also faster, and it was cutting towards him at an extremely fast speed. He was horrified and clearly felt that this attack was far more terrifying than before. Late-stage Golden Core Realm. This attack has definitely reached the late-stage Golden Core Realm. Thoughts flashed through his mind, and he was somewhat in disbelief. In a trance, he suddenly remembered the god's spiritual body grand magical power that Ziyue had exchanged from him. He suddenly thought, could it be that he has also cultivated this grand magical power to the Great Accomplishment realm or the Perfection realm? This time, am I going to die from this grand magical power that I gave myself? He was panic-stricken and in despair. Although he did not give up and controlled the Heaven and Earth Reversal Mirror to block in front of him, he knew that it was too late. Sure enough, under the control of the power of the Golden Core, although the bronze mirror shook before it could rush in front of him, the primordial magnetic divine light had already arrived. Then he felt his head, body, and even the golden core in his body, from top to bottom, were all cold. His entire body was cut into two halves. His thoughts and soul were also annihilated by the destructive force in an instant, and he fell into an eternal pause. Dead. Spiritual energy plus 5982322. Ziyue looked at the number of spiritual energy that had increased sharply and could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. This time, immortal Qian Yuan suddenly attacked him, which really surprised him. Moreover, judging from the other party's many preparations, if it were a few months ago, he might really be restrained by the other party and suffer calamity. After all, whether it was the ruler, the spiritual talisman that could block the soul attack, or the bronze mirror, they were all powerful treasures that happened to restrain several of his grand magical powers. Fortunately, during this period of time, his strength had been increasing. At the peak of the divine realm, the perfection realm of thunder escaping light, and the strength of his soul had also been greatly improved. Although the other party's strength was strong and his preparation was sufficient, it was not beyond the scope of his strength. Therefore, he could kill the other party smoothly. I'm begging you for monthly votes. Chapter 554. Immortal Xiangshan and Immortal Jing Su, who had retreated, were watching the battle. They were very confident in Immortal Qian Yuan. Although Bai Ziyue's strength was strong, and he had once killed an immortal and killed a practitioner in the Gold Core realm, Immortal Qian Yuan was a real practitioner in the Gold Core realm, and his strength was not weak. He had reached the peak of the early stage of the Gold Core realm. Not to mention that his status was equal to that of the masters of the 4 immortal sects in the cloud-piercing mountain range. His strength was not much weaker than theirs. He was definitely a giant. Sure enough, in the following battle, even though Ziyue's attacks were extremely fast and his heaven-sealing swordsmanship was extremely powerful, Immortal Qian Yuan easily avoided them. This time, Immortal Baiming will definitely die. Indeed, our Palace Master is at the same level as the masters of the 4 immortal sects in the cloud-piercing mountain range, in terms of status and strength. Not to mention that Immortal Baiming's means are all under our Palace Master's control. No matter what method he used, it would be countered. Look at his sealing swordsmanship. Our Palace Master's teleportation ruler flashed a few times and dodged it. It's a pity. After all, Immortal Baiming's strength is really amazing. In the Divine Realm, there are only a few people in the Firmament territory who can match him. However, he still has to die. If he doesn't die, how can we get the rewards and benefits? There are too many geniuses in this world. We don't need him. Immortal Xiangshan and Immortal Jing Su were talking with cruel smiles on their faces. However, Bai Ziyue continued to display his innate magical powers, and perfected Lord Qian Yuan was restricted because of this. He was almost powerless to fight back. Even though he unleashed several outbursts, it was difficult for him to escape. He could only barely struggle, especially at the end when Bai Ziyue unleashed his unparalleled power and unleashed the magnetic slash that was comparable to the full force attack of a late-stage Golden Core expert. They watched as the extremely powerful true Lord Qian Yuan was sliced into 2 halves by all of this. He was completely annihilated. They felt that the aura of Immortal Qian Yuan between heaven and earth had completely disappeared at this moment. They were stunned. Everyone was speechless. Immortal Qian Yuan died? Immortal Baiming killed him? They looked at Immortal Baiming, who was still standing there, and felt a chill in their hearts. They had never thought that Ziyue's real strength had reached such an invincible level. Even the tyrannical true Lord Qian Yuan in their eyes was no match for him and was killed by him. How could this be? Immortal Baiming's strength is stronger than the masters of the 4 immortal sects in the cloud-piercing mountain range. What kind of monster is he? Is he really only in the realm? At this moment, countless doubts in their minds is. Without a word, they scattered and away Yin Yuan. Qian Yuan's was fleeing in all directions. Fongs, was. Bai Ziyue suppressed the dizziness in his head and waved his hand to put away the spoils of war. At the same time, he took out 2 golden jade bottles. With a thought, tens of thousands of golden soul strands immediately turned into streaks of spiritual light and poured into his body. He absorbed them and quickly recovered his soul. Only then did he feel that his soul power had been replenished, and he felt much better than before. Then, he turned his attention to his attribute panel. The number of soul power has increased so quickly. It has reached more than 70 million in just a short while. Ziyue saw that the number of soul power on the attribute panel had not only reached 75 million, but it was still rising rapidly. He was surprised and a little happy at the same time. However, when he thought about the situation on the fierce battlefield, he felt that it was normal. Without hesitation, he quickly clicked on the soul power. By consuming 24 million soul power, I can upgrade the great divine spiritual body from the profound realm to the perfect realm. Upgrade. Now that he had enough soul power, and there was a constant supply of soul power on the battlefield in the distance. He would not be stingy. He directly upgraded his great divine spiritual body. In an instant, the aura on his body skyrocketed. His whole body became incomparably huge, as if he was standing between heaven and earth. There was a dazzling power on his body, as if a real god had descended, and his power was unparalleled. At the same time, his mind became clear. Countless questions about the cultivation of the celestial physique, as well as the stagnant points and checkpoints in his cultivation, were all cleared at this moment. He also took the opportunity to raise this great mystique to the pinnacle of perfection. When the great divine spiritual body is upgraded to the perfect realm, my strength has increased tremendously. If I was able to double my strength in all aspects when I reach the great accomplishment realm, then it would be twice as strong now. It directly shows that the power of my attack is stronger than before, and the speed is also faster than before. Ziyue felt that his state, momentum, strength, and speed had increased under the divine spiritual body. Then, he looked at the 4 divine realm cultivators who were fleeing in all directions. Immediately, a flash of lightning flashed across his body. Then, like a sudden clap of thunder, he flashed across the sky. In just a few flashes, he appeared behind a cultivator. "No, spare my life," that cultivator shouted in horror. He immediately performed a desperate, divine spiritual body, and his speed suddenly increased by a lot. In response, Ziyue just stretched out his hand, and the North Sea flying sword immediately cut across the sky. Puff! It pierced through the cultivator's head. Conveniently, he waved his hand and took away the cultivator's spoils of war. Ziyue's figure flashed again. In a few flashes, he had already appeared behind another cultivator and killed him in the same way. At this moment, his speed was really too fast. His speed was already comparable to the full speed of an expert at the peak of the middle stage of the Golden Elixir realm, when he used the complete level of the Thunder Escape Light. Now, with the support of the complete level of the God Spirit Dharma body, his speed had increased by 2 times. His speed immediately surpassed that of a cultivator at the late stage of the Golden Elixir realm, reaching the level of a cultivator at the peak of the late stage of the Golden Elixir realm. Therefore, he was like a flash of lightning. Even though Immortal Xiangshan, Immortal Jing Su, and the others fled in different directions, he was not worried at all. Ziyue's figure flashed again. In just a moment, he had caught up with Immortal Jing Su. "No, don't. This was all Immortal Qian Yuan's idea. He coveted the treasures on you." This time, he also used the moon token of the 9 Stars Dao Palace to find your location. Oh right, Immortal Xiangshan was also the one who told Immortal Qin Yuan everything about you. He guessed that you had treasures on you, so Immortal Qin Yuan made up his mind to attack you. Immortal Jing Su roared wildly, and his heart was terrified to the extreme. He had never thought that a God Realm cultivator could really go against the odds and kill an immortal and a Gold Core Realm immortal. Previously, he was instinctively suspicious of the rumors about Ziyue. Even though many people swore solemnly, he only thought that the soul-controlling demon monarch had just awakened from his endless slumber, and his strength was estimated to be less than 30% of his peak strength. Therefore, he was killed by Immortal Qian Yuan. It was not until now that he truly saw the means of the other party that he realized how foolish his previous thoughts were. His current state of mind was on the verge of collapse. If he had known this would happen, he would never have participated in this operation. But now, is that so? Ziyue whispered. Yes. Immortal Jing Su was overjoyed, thinking that things had taken a turn for the better. Then he felt a pain in his chest and saw a sparkling flying sword piercing through it. The flying sword was very beautiful. It was as thin as a feather and glittered with fluorescent light. It was not stained with the slightest bit of blood, but it emitted a shocking chill that intoxicated people. He stared at it with his eyes wide open. Then, he felt his thoughts being pulled into endless darkness. Until his death, there was a trace of amazement on his face. After killing Immortal Jing Su without hesitation, Ziyue turned around and caught up with immortal Xiangshan in just a few breaths. Senior Dark North, please spare my life. Since we have fought together, please let me go. Immortal Xiangshan shouted. Spiritual Master Xiangshan roared. Seeing Baizu getting closer and closer, his eyes were filled with despair. Let who go? If I lose this time, who will let me go? Zus sneered, but his eyes became colder. It should be known that he had saved immortal Jing Su's life before, but immortal Jing Su repaid his kindness with ingratitude. Although he did not care about these things, he was especially unhappy in his heart. Fight! Immortal Xiangshan sensed that Ziyue was getting closer and closer. The threat was like a guillotine hanging above his head, making his scalp numb. He gritted his teeth and finally turned around. While the aura in his body surged wildly, his whole body suddenly expanded. His arms began to become thick and strong, and the soles of his feet became thicker. His flesh and blood grew crazily under a special force. In the blink of an eye, his whole body became more than 10 times bigger. Moreover, as his body grew larger, layers of thick fur also appeared on his face, body, and entire body. At first glance, he actually looked like a huge black bear demon. Roar! At this moment, immortal Xiangshan's eyes turned blood red and were filled with a crazy and violent aura. He roared like a giant bear and rushed madly towards Ziyue. What kind of divine ability is this? A trace of doubt flashed across Ziyue's face. He raised his palm slightly. In the blink of an eye, a gigantic palm that seemed to be able to blot out the sky suddenly appeared in the void. The palm quickly slapped down. Rumble! The void suddenly exploded, as if a layer of air had burst apart. The palm print suddenly turned into a giant peak that could hold up the sky. It fell down fiercely, directly covering the giant bear that Taoist Master Xiangshan had used. Divine ability, immortal martial, great handprint. Puff! In an instant, he was smashed into a pile of meat paste. Chapter 555. No matter what kind of magical power or how mysterious it was useless in front of absolute power. Bai Ziyue, who had unleashed his god's spiritual celestial body, was now extremely powerful. Every move he made contained a terrifying amount of power. He used this power to unleash the great immortal martial handprint. Even though the power of the great immortal martial handprint was not considered strong and was not even a divine sense, it still possessed a terrifying power that was comparable to an all-out attack from an early gold elixir realm cultivator. Immortal Xiangshan was only an 8-star deity realm expert, which was equivalent to the second level of the peak deity realm. Even if the transformation magical power wasn't weak, it naturally couldn't withstand Ziyue's casual slap and was directly turned into meat paste. With these thoughts flashing in his mind, Ziyue slightly waved his hand and put away the spoils on his body. He also took the opportunity to remove the godly Dharma body, great magical power. Phew! As soon as the godly Dharma body was removed, a sense of weakness immediately arose in his heart, and he couldn't help but feel melancholy. This godly Dharma body is very powerful, and it really boosts my strength greatly. It's a pity that it consumes too much divine thought. Otherwise, I would have been able to maintain it for a long time. Ziyue sensed his little divine thought left at this time, shook his head and sighed. His figure shook and quickly disappeared. After more than 10 breaths, Ziyue's figure appeared in a natural rock cave. He took out the Shumi True Mansion that he had obtained from the auction earlier, stayed in the True Mansion, and then looked at the number of spiritual energy. My spiritual energy has reached more than 70 million again. It's equivalent to an increase of 20 million points in just a few breaths. This feeling is really good. However, at this time, the increase of spiritual energy had obviously slowed down a lot. Thinking about it, most of the demonic cultivators at the deity realm had probably been killed by True Monarch Mountain Crushing and the rest, and most of the remaining demonic cultivators at the Aperture Opening realm had also died. Now, although the spiritual energy was still increasing rapidly, it seemed a little scattered. I estimate that in the end, it can at most increase my spiritual energy to about 90 million and less than 100 million to reach the extreme level of upgrade. Ziwa looked at the rapidly increasing amount of spirit energy on his attribute panel and sighed inwardly. Soon, he came to a conclusion. This was also an estimation based on his status panel of how much spirit energy each powerhouse would give him when they died. Although it wasn't very accurate, it wasn't too far off. This situation made him secretly heave a sigh of relief. Then, they started to get restless again. Now that I have 5 great divine abilities at hand, and all of them have been upgraded to the great perfection stage, it is reasonable to say that I don't need to spend much soul energy. However, I lack an offensive technique that is completely compatible with me and is created according to my own cultivation method. Ziwa furrowed his brows as a look of contemplation flashed across his face. Even if he could fully unleash the power of these great abilities to the maximum, he would still be able to do so. However, this so-called extreme was only the extreme of the techniques of the predecessors. It was based on the level of the techniques of the predecessors, and it was not his own extreme. Therefore, although Ziwa was able to unleash these great abilities smoothly, he always felt a sense of hesitation. After all, his cultivation method was the top cultivation method in the world. At the aperture opening stage, it was a supreme cultivation method that could ignite 1296 acupoints. It was the great way of the first yuan. Even the heaven-devouring divine transformation technique was a supreme cultivation method that extended from the great way of the first yuan. Naturally, his power, strength, foundation, the strength of his divine sense, the strength of his soul, and the strength of his physical body. All of these were far more profound than countless people, and even surpassed the founders of these great abilities and great abilities. Therefore, I need a method that can completely unleash the power that belongs to me. I need a method that can truly unleash my strength. I need a method that can proudly descend upon the world and conquer all things. This method is a method that belongs to me alone. It is like my innate divine ability, and it belongs to me alone. It is a life method that originated from my cultivation method. Ziwa muttered to himself. He raised his eyes slightly and could not help but flash a trace of scorching heat. At this moment, his heart rose, his fighting spirit burned, and he was as high-spirited as the rising sun. He was somewhat hot-blooded and could not wait any longer. Activate the Tao enlightenment time. The time is unlimited, Ziwa thought. In an instant, he felt that his 4 senses, perception, divine sense, soul perception, comprehension of heaven and earth, comprehension, all of them had increased countless times at this moment. The capture of all kinds of inspiration that flashed through his mind, the mysterious changes of the Tao laws that naturally operated between heaven and earth, and some ideas that came to him but were forgotten in the blink of an eye, all of these became incomparably clear in his mind. In an instant, the countless accumulations from before, various divine abilities, great abilities, various offensive techniques, dharma spells, and the perception of the operation of the Great Way, all of them turned into a formula that seemed to materialize and collided violently in his mind. It even stirred up pieces of sparks. Then, Ziwa intercepted the pieces of sparks and closely combined them with the heaven-devouring divine transformation technique that he had created. It was completely based on the characteristics of his cultivation method, thinking pattern, and originated from himself. He began to create a method that was unique to him bit by bit. This was a grinding process. Not only did it require an incomparably deep foundation, but it also required a flash of insight and inspiration. Fortunately, Ziwa did not lack any of these. Under the Tao enlightenment time, his inspiration was unlimited. In terms of foundation, he could even compete with the top Golden Core realm expert. Time passed. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. As if he could not feel the passage of time, Ziwa's mind was spinning violently. The changes in the outside world, the rise and fall of the sun and moon, he did not feel anything at all. Suddenly, Ziwa's heart trembled. His eyes suddenly opened. There was no joy or sorrow. However, a mysterious and dazzling light flashed in his indifferent eyes. This method, Ziyue's expression was inexplicable. After a long time, he heaved a long sigh and whispered, "This method of mine is too crazy. Although it's only a prototype, it doesn't have a method of execution. It needs to be perfected with the help of the myriad Tao of heaven and earth. As long as my strength does not reach the peak, I do not look down on all things in the world, and I do not transcend the great Tao of heaven and earth. This method will always be a prototype. I thought it was destined to be difficult, but I didn't expect it to be created by me." This time, the method that Ziyue created was ultimately about the word supplement. At the level of concept, it had even transcended the divine powers and reached the realm of Tao. In the world of immortal spells, the offensive and defensive techniques that transcend divine powers are called Tao techniques. They are derived from the meaning of the Tao techniques that contain the great Tao of heaven and earth. What I've created this time has a hint of a Tao technique. Although it's only a prototype in essence, it can be combined with various offensive and defensive techniques. Thus, these offensive and defensive techniques can be fully displayed with one's own strength. For example, the great divine power of the great magnetic slash. If I used it with my previous strength, it could reach the peak of the middle golden core stage. But in essence, the level of the cultivation method of the cultivator who created the great magnetic slash, calculated by the number of lit acupoints, was actually only 1,080. Therefore, when I used this great divine power, the number of acupoints used was only 1,080. I did not fully display the advantage of my 1,296 acupoints. But if I used this method of mine, or rather, this Tao technique, it would be equivalent to raising the grade of the great magnetic slash to the level of 1,296 acupoints. If I used it with my current strength, it should be able to reach the level of an all-out attack of a late golden core stage cultivator. Unknowingly, it would increase my strength and the power of my divine power. It's the same for other divine powers. As long as I used this Tao technique of mine to cast them, their power would increase by another level. This was originally the limitation of the creator's cultivation method, but because of this Tao technique of mine, it was made up for. Ziyue silently analyzed and carefully comprehended the characteristics of this Tao technique. He was extremely excited. So, in the end, this Tao technique of mine is actually equivalent to a converter. In terms of strength, it is of little value to many cultivators. After all, the level of many divine powers is actually higher than the level of their own cultivation method. But because the level of my cultivation method is extremely high, it has reached the peak of cultivators of the same level. Therefore, the effect and power of this converter immediately reached the pinnacle. Ziyue was very satisfied with this creation of the technique. Such a technique was much stronger than Dan Siyuan's offensive and defensive techniques. This was because although a single offensive technique was strong, it was only strong in one aspect. But with the help of the Tao technique he created this time, he could reach the peak level in all aspects. With just a slight comparison, anyone would be able to detect the difference. If that's the case, I'll name this new technique the Heaven Mending Technique. Using the Heaven Patching Technique to cast various divine powers and great divine powers can directly increase the power of these divine powers and great divine powers to the extreme. In the end, isn't it kind of completion? This Heaven Patching Technique is compatible with this technique. Ziyue pondered for a moment and quickly decided on the name of this Tao technique. And the moment he named this Tao technique, he immediately saw an additional horizontal bar on his attribute panel. Tao technique, Heaven Patching Technique. As expected, this technique of mine is far superior to divine powers and great divine powers. It has reached another level. This time, it is really the first time that my countless accumulations have been unleashed. However, although this Heaven Patching Technique is strong, if it wants to make up for the power of my divine powers to the extreme, it will also consume a terrifying amount of divine sense. Using the great essence-fused magnetic slash, it would consume 10% of his spiritual sense every time he used it. And if I want to make up for the weaker divine powers like the divine ray of obliteration, ground shrink, and minor spirit restriction to the extreme, then the consumption of divine sense will be more than 50%. Ziyue could not help but sigh. Chapter 556. The Heaven Mending Technique made up for the difference in power and mystery of divine abilities. This difference was based on Ziyue himself. With his first origin Grand Dao, the heaven-devouring transformation art was the upper limit. As long as a cultivator could create a spell that wasn't at the level of the first origin Grand Dao, or the heaven-devouring transformation art, then the heaven-mending art would be able to work. In the world of immortals, divine abilities and great divine abilities with more than 1,200 acupoints are called peerless divine abilities or peerless great divine abilities. The divine abilities and great divine abilities created by my heaven-mending technique can naturally all be regarded as peerless divine abilities and great divine abilities. Ziyue felt very comfortable. If he used the heaven-mending technique to use those divine abilities, the consumption of divine sense would be very terrifying. But why would I be afraid of consuming divine sense? Ziyue looked at the number of spirit energy, and his eyes suddenly widened. He said in shock, "There's only 20 million spirit energy left. This means that I used up 50 million or even 60 million spirit energy to create this heaven-mending technique. How much time has passed?" He suddenly stood up. When he activated the Tao comprehension time, the number of spirit energy on his status panel was more than 70 million. In addition, the battle hadn't ended yet, so there was actually more spirit energy. In total, it was around 80 million, if not 90 million. This was why he wanted to create this technique that was unique to him. He originally thought that it would be enough to consume 10 to 20 million spirit energy, but he didn't expect it to be so much. Thinking of this, he quickly calculated with his fingers. More than 4 days, almost 5 days. Fortunately, there's still time. When we used the huge Axe Spiritual Master's warship to travel, it took us half a month to travel from Piercing Cloud City to True Devil Mountain. The disciples of the various immortal sects were traveling, so it was impossible for all of them to travel on warships. In addition, there were many aperture opening realm cultivators, so it would take even more time. Even if we're already halfway there, it should still take 7 to 8 days. However, I should also set off now and hurry to True Devil Mountain. After all, no one knows when the real battle will erupt. Moreover, there will be a lot of small-scale battles in the early stages. I can't miss it. This time, I've only split the battlefield, but I've already harvested more than 100 million points of spiritual energy. The final battle will definitely be even more. It would be a pity to miss it. Ziyue was in a hurry, rushing out of the Shumi True Mansion. With a tap of his hand, the Shumi True Mansion appeared in his palm. Then his figure flickered, leaping into the distance. After thinking about it, he couldn't help but start experimenting with the effects of the heaven-mending technique. Following which, under the heaven-mend technique, he used the lightning escape technique. In an instant, layers of special light enveloped his entire body, and a bolt of lightning flashed. Chi! With a crisp sound, Ziyue's figure flashed past at an incredible speed. The scenery around him seemed to be flowing backwards in front of his eyes. The sunlight, the white clouds, the scenery, and even time seemed to have slowed down at this moment. He only flashed, and he passed by. This speed has definitely surpassed the previous limit. It's at the late stage of the Golden Core Realm. Moreover, it's not an ordinary late-stage Golden Core Realm. It should be equivalent to the full speed of a first-rate late-stage Golden Core Realm cultivator. If I use the God Physique again. Thinking of this, Ziyue didn't hesitate. The aura on his body immediately skyrocketed. Under his control, although his body didn't grow bigger, it became heavier. As the spiritual light on his body flickered, he really looked like a god descending to the world. With the help of the heaven-mending technique, he once again superimposed this great ability. Bang! Lightning exploded, and the void exploded. At the same time, a whistling sound was heard. A stream of light flew past. At this moment, the speed had really reached a certain limit. Because of this, a long wave of air even appeared in the void. The wave rolled and didn't dissipate for a long time. So fast. It's too fast. At this speed, even my physical body can't withstand it. I feel like it's being torn apart. It's as if at this extreme speed, my physical body will collapse after a long time. Bai Ziyue performed the heaven-patching technique with all his might. His godly spirit physique and the lightning escape light, one Tao technique, and two great supernatural powers were superimposed on each other. Moreover, they had all reached the pinnacle of perfection. After a while, he immediately felt a piercing pain, as if a heavy hammer or a blunt knife was cutting into his body bit by bit. With a thought, he quickly slowed down and dispersed the god physique. Only then did he feel much more comfortable. Based on this calculation, if I use my full strength, my speed should be barely comparable to the second-rate or first-rate Golden Core Realm cultivators. Although I can't maintain it for a long time, at most 10 breaths. Once 10 breaths pass, my physical body will be torn apart, damaged, and even in danger of collapsing. However, my speed has indeed exceeded the limit of ordinary people's imagination. At least when facing a top Golden Core Realm cultivator, even if I can't defeat him, I can use this to escape. Based on this, my offensive and defensive power should be able to increase to the peak of the Golden Core Realm with the help of the Heaven Mending technique, although I can only maintain it for 10 breaths at most. However, it's enough for me to settle down in the next battle and carry out more plans. Ziyue pondered silently. He was really surprised. He was also very satisfied with his heaven-mending technique. Although he used many great abilities at the same time, the consumption of his divine will was also very terrifying. For example, at this moment, he had only used his full strength in a short period of time. Even with the thickness of his divine will, he had already consumed 50% of it. He estimated that he could only maintain it for 10 breaths at most during a battle. However, the increase in combat power would be even more shocking. All in all, it could be said that the advantages outweighed the disadvantages. Not to mention, he still had soul energy to recover his divine will. Just like that, a day later, Ziyue caught up with True Lord Mountain Crushing Mountain and the others. Although they were also rushing with all their strength, they naturally couldn't compare to Ziyue's extreme speed. If he hadn't delayed some time in order to recover his divine will, he would have caught up even faster. However, he didn't really show up. Instead, he went around them and headed towards the True Demon Mountain first. 2 days later, Ziyue looked at the huge and magnificent mountain range. The last time he was here, it seemed incomparably desolate with thin spirit chi. At this moment, he could clearly feel that the spirit chi of heaven and earth around him had become much thicker. Although the power of a grade 5 spirit vein had not been completely revealed, it already had the preliminary signs of the spirit land's birdsong fragrance and the breeding of all living things. At this moment, countless disciples of various sects and itinerant cultivators had gathered near the True Demon Mountain. They were stationed within 100 miles of the mountain range. Occasionally, they would chat in groups of 3 to 5, and occasionally, they would silently cultivate and wait. There were also disciples of various sects patrolling the surroundings. Among the 4 demon lords, the demon Tao forces in 2 directions have been confirmed to have been destroyed. In the other 2 directions, there have also been casualties to a certain extent. Master Shinto, an early-stage gold core stage expert from the Thousand Buddha sect, was killed by the true demon of the True Demon sect. It is said that this devil lord, Ku Rong, was originally from the Thousand Buddha sect, and the 2 of them were fellow disciples. This time, when the 2 gold core stage experts fought, the devil lord Ku Rong was still the stronger one. In the True Demon Mountain, there are already 5 gold core stage experts gathered. It is said that even the Thunder sect leader has appeared. I heard that the True Demon sect leader, Demon Lord Jin Shao, has already reached the late stage of the Gold Core stage. He is the 2nd Gold Core stage expert in the cloud-piercing mountain range other than the Supreme Elder of the Qingsu sect, Wang Weijin. Previously, we had already clashed with the True Demon sect twice. Although the casualties were small, it has to be said that the other party's strength is not weak. According to the information we received, there are more than 10,000 Devil Sect cultivators above the Aperture opening realm in the True Demon Sect. I heard that the array formation set up in the True Demon Sect is also extremely strong. It was a grade 5 formation, the 5 Fiend World Extermination Formation. Even if a Primordial Soul Stage expert were to enter, they would not be able to get away with it. The reason why the various immortal sects did not directly take action was because they did not have the confidence to break through this formation. Zua hid his identity and wandered around outside. Very quickly, he found out a lot of information from the experts of the various sects that gathered from all directions and also understood the current situation. There are too many experts gathered in this battle. Just the number of Gold Core Stage experts that outsiders knew of was 5. Not to mention the Gold Core Stage experts that were hiding in the dark and had yet to arrive, such as True Lord Jinyu. In addition to the True Devil Sect, there were a total of 7 known Gold Core Stage Devil Cultivator-S. Even if 2 of them had already fallen, there were still 5 left. Not to mention, it was said that the True Devil sect leader had already reached the late stage of the Gold Core Stage. And who knew if there were any hidden experts hiding in the dark in the True Devil Sect? Therefore, this was a heaven-shaking battle. Regardless of whether it is the level of danger or the intensity of the battle, it is far greater than when we were at the Wanderer Mountain. Ziwa chose a mountain belly, took out the Shumi True Palace, and sat upright in the cultivation room, silently thinking. He quickly came to a conclusion and said softly, "The danger level of this stop is too high. To be safe, it's better if I don't show my face and reveal my strength." Keeping a low profile was the way of the king. Otherwise, if he was targeted, it would increase the danger. When the war really starts, I will secretly take action and be able to obtain more benefits. Other than this reason, when he was at the Wanderer Mountain, he had helped True Lord Jinyu out of his predicament and helped him kill the Shadow Devil King. However, the other party did not care about True Lord Qian Yuan's sneak attack. Although it was understandable, after all, True Lord Qian Yuan's identity was extraordinary and his strength was extremely strong. He and the other party had only met by chance and had occasionally interacted with each other. However, the other party's actions made him feel a little cold. Therefore, this time, he did not plan to directly participate in it. Instead, he planned to secretly plan and then make his move. He would only fight for himself and strive to obtain the greatest benefits from it. Chapter 557. Also, since I have time, it's time for me to sort out the loot from the last battle. When Ziyu thought of perfected cultivator Qian Yuan, he immediately thought of the loot that belonged to him. His eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. Previously, because the battle had just ended, Ziyu had gained a little. In addition, his heart was surging with excitement, so he could not wait to start the enlightenment time to create a new technique. His first Taoist technique, the Heaven Patching Technique, came about because of this. After creating the Heaven Patching Technique, he was worried that he would not be able to make it in time for the battle between the cultivators of the various sects and the demonic cultivators, so he temporarily put aside the sorting out of the loot. Now, after some understanding, he knew that although the atmosphere of the battle was tense and depressing, and there were conflicts between the cultivators of the various sects and the demonic cultivators from time to time, it had not officially started. His mind immediately became active. The loot from the last battle is still very rich. Ziyu raised his eyes slightly and waved his hand. Suddenly, more than 10 storage bags appeared in front of him. In addition to the storage pouch, there was also a large number of magic treasures of various grades, which were also his spoils of war. 17 storage bags. 2 of them belonged to perfected cultivator Qian Yuan and Dark Shadow, Demon Monarch. As for the remaining 15, 4 of them belonged to immortal Xiangshan and the others. The other 11 belonged to the demonic cultivators of the deity realm. Ziyu moved his mind, and the storage bags hovered in front of him one by one. He waved his hand, and a 5-colored flame immediately rose. In the blink of an eye, it wrapped up the storage bags. With his flame control, he was able to accurately determine the limits of the restrictions on the storage bags. He was also able to flexibly control the temperature of the flames from the changes in the restrictions. Naturally, he was able to easily and completely open the storage bags. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. Soon after, he removed the restriction on one of the storage pouches with a pop. Then, the second, the third, the fourth, even the 2 storage bags that belonged to the cultivators of the Golden Core realm did not stop him for long and were opened by him. Then, Ziwe took out all the items in each storage bag. Countless scattered spiritual objects almost filled the entire hall of the Shumi True Mansion. However, Ziwe soon frowned. He then stretched out his hand and summoned a 5-colored flame without hesitation. In an instant, a large number of items were burned to ashes. This time, Ziwe burned all kinds of strange items that belonged to the demonic cultivators that contained evil chi and netherworld chi, as well as many demonic materials and magic treasures. Among them, there was even a magic treasure of the Devil Dao that had reached the level of a low-grade gold core treasure. They were all incinerated by his 10,000 flames furnace. As a result, by Ziwe's soul energy increased by a whole 10 million points. Then, he looked at the other treasures. The first thing that caught his eye was naturally the few golden core treasures. A ruler, a silver knife, a bronze, a gold chain, a black flying dagger. 4 of them belong to true Lord Qian Yuan, and most of them are of high quality. I have to say, true Lord Qian Yuan is worthy of being the palace master of the 9 Stars Dao Palace's branch in Chuanyan City. His background is extraordinary, his strength is strong, and his background is deep. Most importantly, he is rich. Ziwe could not help but sigh with emotion. But now, these treasures are all mine. Of these 5 gold core treasures, 1 is a high-grade gold core treasure, 2 are mid-grade, and 2 are low-grade. Among them, the high-grade gold core treasure should be this bronze mirror, to be able to defend against my great magnetic slash, which is comparable to the full-strength attack of a peak middle-stage golden core expert, and to even be able to reflect my attack. That is to say, true monarch Qian Yuan's golden core origin energy is not strong enough. Coupled with the lack of sacrificial refinement, he was unable to stabilize it. Otherwise, with this high-grade golden core treasure, he would be in an invincible position. This bronze mirror is definitely a great treasure. Ziwe had seen the terrifying defensive power of the bronze mirror, and he was aware of its valiant ability to reflect attacks. Now that he held it in his hand and was influenced by it, he quickly understood the function and name of the bronze mirror. He could not help but feel more satisfied. This ruler seems to be called the teleportation ruler. Although it is only a low-grade gold core treasure, it can teleport a short distance. It is a rare, spatial treasure and is very mysterious. At a critical moment, it will definitely be of great use. As for this chain, it is a mid-grade gold core treasure called the Broken Jade Divine Lock. It is extremely effective in breaking through defensive great abilities and defensive treasures. And this silver knife is a mid-grade gold core treasure called the Silver Moon. Although it is not weak when used, it overlaps with my North Sea flying dagger. After all, it is not a natal treasure, so it is not very convenient to use. It is not very useful to me. Of course, it is a mid-grade gold core treasure after all, and its value is not low. On the other hand, this black knife that belonged to the Shadow Demon Monarch has a natural concealment ability. Once used, it will be invisible. Although it is only a low-grade gold core treasure, it is sometimes even more useful than some mid-grade gold core treasures. Ziwe looked at the gold core treasures one by one. Under the influence of his divine sense, he understood their functions and names. He was in a good mood. This time, not to mention the other treasures, the harvest of these gold core treasures could be considered huge. Not to mention, there are many other secret treasures among them. There are 3 bottles of 4th-grade pills. 1 bottle is the Soul Recovery Pill, which can restore the power of the soul. The other bottle is the Spirit Ascension Pill, which can restore the divine sense or gold core Yuan energy. The last bottle is the longevity pill. One pill can increase one's lifespan by 30 years. 3 pills will increase one's lifespan by 90 years. Although the same pill will continue to weaken the effect, 3 pills can definitely achieve 50 years of lifespan. For many people, the value of these pills is extremely high. There are only 2 fourth-grade talismans. One is an offensive talisman, the Myriad Sword Talisman, which can stimulate 10,000 sword lights to kill the enemy. The other one is a defensive talisman, the Soul Control Talisman. This talisman seems to be the one that true monarch Qian Yuan used to defend against my divine sense. Although it didn't have much of an effect, the Soul Control Talisman can defend against soul attacks. It is definitely a good item. And there's this jade bottle. Could it be? Ziyue looked at them one by one. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, and he excitedly held up a jade bottle that seemed to be a little heavy. He carefully opened the jade bottle. His breath trembled, and he said in surprise, "Sure enough, this jade bottle contains the primordial spirit essence liquid that true monarch Qian Yuan used before, which greatly increased his strength. There are a total of 5 drops of primordial spirit essence liquid in this bottle, and its effect is definitely not small. It can even be used as a trump card for a gold core cultivator." Ziyue carefully put this treasure into his storage bag. Next, Ziyue looked at the other treasures again. Although there was no lack of heavenly materials and earthly treasures of the 4th rank and above, as well as many superior and supreme treasures, they were not very useful to him at the moment. As he picked and chose, he put everything he could use into his storage pouch. As for the treasures that were not useful but contained a certain value, he put them into another storage bag. He planned to throw them into the Kunlun Pavilion when he had time and let Xiao Yue Piao deal with them. Next, there are the Spirit Stones, the Jade Map Eyes, and these 2 Dao Source Stones. In terms of Spirit Stones, there are more than 320 million lower-grade Spirit Stones, which is equivalent to more than 32,000 upper-grade Spirit Stones, but most of them came from the 2 gold core cultivators. Among them, there are 8,000 in the storage bag of Shadow Devil Monarch, 17,000 in true Monarch Qian Yuan, and the rest belong to the other God Realm cultivators. As for the Jade Map Eyes, there are more than 300 of them. Ziyue first put away all the Spirit Stones. Then he used his divine thought to explore the Jade Map Eyes. Ziyue also spent some time to sort through the 300 over Jade Slips one by one, and only then did he manage to do so. In total, he obtained 13 Divine Ability Inheritances, 32 God Realm Cultivation Method Inheritances, a pile of records related to magic arts, various kinds of alchemy, refining weapons, formations, and so on. Some of them were the cultivation experience of some divine abilities, and some biographies, maps, and records about special places after a rough exploration. Ziyue put them away. He planned to organize them when he had time. Maybe he could find something special. At least it could increase his foundation. Finally, there are these 2 Dao Source Stones. Things that can be recorded by the Dao Source Stones are either great divine abilities or top cultivation methods. They must be very extraordinary. Ziyue was looking forward to it. He immediately used his divine thought to explore the 2 Dao Source Stones. Boom! In the blink of an eye, a large amount of records regarding the inheritance of the Dao Source Stone surged into his mind. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. After a while, Ziyue used his divine thought to explore the other Dao Source Stone. Immediately, a large number of information about the Dao Source Stones poured into his mind. True Jade Virtual Record, Shadow Realm. 1 is a cultivation method inheritance, and the other is a great divine ability inheritance. The True Jade Virtual Record is a cultivation method inheritance that leads to the peak of the Golden Elixir Realm. Unfortunately, it can only condense a 3rd-grade Golden Elixir, which is a bit too low. It's not very useful to me. As for the Shadow Realm, it turns out to be a rare, great divine ability inheritance that cultivates the power of a realm. This should be the Shadow Demon Monarch's opportunity. With his strength and the level of his cultivation method, he couldn't fully display the mystery of the Shadow Realm. Ziyue carefully analyzed the 2 inheritances. The True J Virtual Record was not a big deal, but the shadow realm made his eyes light up. Not only was the realm great divine ability rare, but the number of acupoints involved in this great divine ability was more than 1,200. In other words, this was a peerless great divine ability. Chapter 558. In the world of immortal spells, only when the number of acupoints involved in the cultivation of divine abilities or great divine abilities exceeded 1,200 could they be called peerless divine abilities or great divine abilities. Peerless great divine abilities were superior to ordinary great divine abilities in terms of their exquisiteness and power. The Shadow Domain was a great divine ability and was equally powerful. The Dark Shadow Demon Monarch was only at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. Due to the limitations of his own cultivation method, he was far from being able to display the full profundity of this peerless divine ability. Otherwise, no matter how strong Baizu's soul was, he wouldn't have been able to sense the Dark Shadow Demon Monarch's sneak attack beforehand. This was because in addition to the concealment effect of the Shadow Domain, it also had the ability to conceal the mysteries of the heavens. In other words, even if Ziyue used the lesser evasion technique or a more advanced technique to avoid danger, he wouldn't be able to sense the danger in the Shadow Domain and wouldn't receive any warning. It was truly miraculous. More than 32,000 high-grade spirit stones, 5 golden core treasures, 3 bottles of 4th-grade spirit pills, 2 4th-grade spirit talismans, a bottle of 5 drops of primordial spirit fluid, a cultivation technique that can reach the peak of the Golden Core realm, and a peerless great divine ability. Adding everything up, my harvest this time is really too great. In terms of spirit stones, I have at least 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. But in reality, many of these treasures are priceless. For example, there isn't a single primordial spirit fluid in the entire cloud-piercing mountain range. So how could there be such a thing? Only true Lord Qianyuan, who has an extraordinary background and is the palace master of the 9 Stars Dao Palace, would have such a thing on him. Ziyue calculated his harvest this time and felt a sense of wealth in his heart. He was even a little excited, because some of these treasures would be of great help to his strength. However, for the time being, I need to take the first step and accumulate my strength to the maximum. Ziyue put away all his gains and looked at his attribute panel. Now, he still had more than 30 million points of spiritual energy. All his great divine abilities, except for the Shadow Domain that he had just obtained, had been upgraded to the Great Perfection realm and couldn't be improved any further. However, his Immortal Spell realm was still slightly lacking. Even though he had already reached God Realm Pinnacle, he was still a step away from reaching consummation of his cultivation technique and achieving the 3rd metamorphosis. The 3rd transformation still requires 113 million points of soul energy before it can be fully accumulated. In terms of soul energy, I'm still lacking, but I don't lack spirit stones. This time, I've already obtained 32,000 upper-grade spirit stones. In addition to the 10,000 upper-grade spirit stones that I already had, I now have 42,000 upper-grade spirit stones, which is more than enough. Ziyue's mind raced. Without hesitation, he waved his hand. In an instant, a pile of spirit stones appeared in front of him. There is a total of 5 million low-grade spiritual stones in this pile. Without any hesitation at all, Ziyue's spiritual force was like a hammer, crushing it gently. In an instant, all the spirit stones were crushed by him, and then an endless amount of heaven and earth spirit chi spread out. Seeing this, Ziyue immediately activated the heaven-devouring divine transformation technique to the extreme. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A terrifying suction force was generated, as if it could devour heaven and earth. Immediately, the massive amount of heaven and earth spirit chi that was emitted from the spirit stones was sucked into Ziyue's body. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, in just 10 breaths' time, the surrounding heaven and earth spirit chi, as well as the terrifying energy contained in the 500 low-grade spiritual stones, were all absorbed by Ziyue. Then, along with the cultivation technique, it was transformed into spiritual force. Finally, it was burned, forged, purified, and refined by the Great Path Heart Lamp. It was transformed into extremely pure spiritual force and poured into his dantian. Then, Ziyue did not stop. He took out another 5 million low-grade spiritual stones and crushed them with his spiritual force. At the same time, endless heaven and earth spirit chi was released. At the same time, his heaven-devouring divine transformation technique was also activated quickly and crazily to absorb the energy. In this way, the cycle repeated, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, until the 113 million low-grade spiritual stones were absorbed and transformed by him. Suddenly, Ziyue's body shook, and a feeling of satisfaction immediately emerged in his heart. He suddenly had an epiphany in his heart. The energy required for the third transformation of the heaven-devouring divine transformation technique has been fully accumulated, and my immortal cultivation realm has also reached the limit of the divine realm. One more step, and I will reach the golden core realm. Ziyue slowly opened his eyes, and there was obvious joy on his face. The peak of the divine realm, the completion of the third transformation, had reached the limit of this realm. Next, it was the golden core realm. The golden core is the condensation of all the energy in the body, including the spiritual force, soul, chi, blood, and vitality. Once the golden core is formed, the cultivator can even surpass the physical body. Even if the physical body is destroyed and dies, it will not be life-threatening. As long as the golden core is still there, there is still a glimmer of hope. My lifespan has officially exceeded 1,000, and I can even live to the limit of 3,000. Ziyue had been longing for the golden core for a long time. He could not help but feel a little excited. He could not wait to start the third transformation and condense the golden core. But soon he calmed down. The environment was not suitable. On the battlefield, once there was a slight movement, it would attract the attention of others. If someone had evil intentions, the consequences would be unpredictable. Moreover, he did not have an extremely rich and high-quality murderous aura to condense the golden core. Without the suppression of the murderous aura, the quality of the golden core would be affected. Although the heaven-devouring divine transformation technique was the top divine realm cultivation technique in the world, coupled with his extremely rich accumulation and foundation, he was absolutely confident that he could condense a third-grade golden core even without the help of the top-grade murderous aura. But there was also a difference between the third-grade golden cores. The third-grade golden core was definitely weaker than the second-grade golden core, and the second-grade golden core was weaker than the first-grade golden core. With Ziyue's ambition, he naturally hoped to condense a first-grade golden core and achieve the extreme. Thus, what I lack now is a sufficiently dense and extremely high-quality baleful aura. Ziyue thought in his heart, and he could not help but calm down. The great array of the true Devil Mountain had already been raised. The misty environment made it extremely difficult for the cultivators outside to see what was going on inside. Countless cultivators gathered continuously. From the time they discovered the location of the true Devil sect until now, the number of cultivators who had gathered in the vicinity had reached almost 100,000. Although most of the cultivators were relatively weak, and there was no lack of Chi Refinement Realm cultivators who came to join the fun, there were also many top Golden Core Realm cultivators and Peak Divine Realm cultivators. In a Sumeru Palace, more than 10 cultivators with deep auras sat opposite each other. Among these people, the weakest was at the peak of the Divine Realm, and the strongest was naturally at the Golden Core Realm. Among them, Qing Su Sek's true Lord Ling Coffin and true Lord Pushing Sword were among them. Other than them, there were also the Golden Core Realm true lords of the other three immortal sects. The fifth-grade Great Array has extremely strong defensive power. It is difficult to break through unless one is at the primordial soul realm. Putting Demon Lord Jun Hao aside, this 5 murderous world-destroying array needs to be broken first. So, it's time for you to bring out the foundations of your respective sections. At this moment, a cultivator with a ruddy face who was dressed in a golden Taoist robe said in a deep voice. He was one of the few Golden Core realm sectless cultivators present. He was also the city governor of Chuanyan City, True Lord Bai. Although he was not the strongest among the people present, he had lived for a long time and had a high seniority. Therefore, his status was rather high. We came in a hurry this time, so we only brought a divine arrow of annihilation. Although it can shake a 5th grade great array, it'll be difficult to break it. True Lord Gu Peng of the Tai Celestial Sect took the lead and said, "The great Buddhist sect has a grade 5 beginner formation breaking talisman. However, although the talisman's grade is high, the power it contains is limited. It can only break the great array for 10 breaths. After 10 breaths, the talisman's power will be depleted. If you want to break the formation, it will be a little difficult." Master Ku Jing of the great Buddhist sect shook his head and said, "What a coincidence. What a coincidence. I have a grade 5 initial talisman, the earth-shaking talisman. With the help of the formation's power, it can increase the power of this spiritual talisman by 30%. If Master Ku Jing can use this earth-shaking talisman at the same time as he uses the formation-breaking talisman, it should be able to increase the opening time of the formation to 30 breaths." True Lord Ling Coffin of the Qing Su sect said with a smile, "A grade 5 great array has 72 formation bases. Only when more than half of the formation bases are broken will the great array be completely destroyed. Furthermore, there was bound to be a group of cultivators guarding each of the array bases. In addition to the 4 areas within the grand array, a golden core cultivator would at most be able to break through 2 array bases within 30 breaths of time. Since we have 7 golden core powerhouses here, we'll only be able to break 14 formation bases at most. Moreover, there are many golden core powerhouses in the True Devil sect as well. If they make a move to stop us, the situation will be very bad. If we fail on the verge of success and fail to escape from the great array within 30 breaths, we'll definitely die. Therefore, 30 breaths is far from enough. We'll need at least 100 breaths. In addition, we'll have to organize a large group of Divine Realm cultivators to enter together and break the formation bases. I have to say, it's extremely dangerous." True Lord Gu Peng was not only an early-stage Golden Core powerhouse, but he was also proficient in formation. His expression was grave. "I'm confident that I can stop the 5 evils world devastating array for 100 breaths. However, the only thing that worries me is Demon Lord Jinhao. That old man has reached the late-stage Golden Core realm without making a sound. Although I don't think I'm weak, I'm not confident that I can stop him for long." The one who spoke was True Lord Li Zhan of the Thunder sect. His expression was grave as he looked at True Lord Ling Coffin and said, "Is your Grand Elder really not coming? Without Senior's help, it'll be difficult for us to kill Demon Lord Jinhao. We'll also suffer heavy losses." Chapter 559. Martial Uncle is always in closed-door training in Mount Qingshu. He hasn't shown up for more than 100 years. I'm not sure about his situation either. True Lord Ling Coffin shook his head. Who doesn't know that your Qingshu sect's spiritual vein has reached the peak of the early 5th grade with the help of the Starlight Spirit Gathering Formation? It can reach the middle 5th grade at any time. When the spiritual vein's grade increases, the heavens and earth will bestow auspicious signs and great opportunities. With this auspicious sign and great opportunity, immortal cultivators have a much higher chance of breaking through the shackles of their realms. Although Senior Wang Weijin is the most powerful person in the cloud-piercing mountain range, he has already lived for 2,700 years and is nearing the end of his lifespan. For the past 100 years, he has probably been waiting for the opportunity to upgrade the grade of the spiritual vein. He wants to take this opportunity to advance further and break through to the primordial soul stage. However, since your Mount Qingshu sect spiritual vein hasn't been able to break through the grade limit and become a middle 5th grade spiritual vein in the past 100 years, there must be something missing. Everyone knows that the grade of a spiritual vein can be upgraded through the core of the spiritual vein. I don't believe that the Qingshu sect won't be tempted by the core of the grade, 5 spiritual vein at the True Devil Sect's mountain gate. Senior Wang Weijin won't be tempted? I guess he's already around here, even though he hasn't shown up yet. True Lord Gu Peng looked at True Lord Ling Coffin and said sourly, "That's not something I can know. With his strength, no one can find him if he doesn't want to show up." True Lord Ling Coffin's expression did not change as he said noncommittally, "All right, regardless of whether Senior Wang Weijin is here or not, our plan has been set. Next, we have to choose the time and organize the manpower. We have to break the True Devil Sect's mountain protection formation in the shortest time possible. Once the formation is broken, we'll lose no matter how strong Devil Lord Jinhua is with our advantage in numbers and the continuous addition of powerhouses." True Lord Bai said with a final word, "Kong Ping, you should know what our Luotian sect relied on to be promoted from a third-rate sect to a second-rate sect in a short 100 years. Also, don't forget about the heart demon goo in our bodies. Once the Lord is finished, you and I will definitely die. The Luotian sect will be destroyed as well. You're the one with the most powerful concealment technique among all the god-level cultivators in the Luotian sect. You must send this jade map pupil to the designated location in the shortest time possible. After you put the things away, don't hesitate and leave immediately. At that time, someone would naturally take the jade map away. However, if you're discovered during this period and arouse suspicion, then don't hesitate to crush the jade map and do whatever you want. Do you understand?" In a secret chamber, a tall and skinny old man looked at the middle divine realm cultivator and said in a deep voice, "Yes, Sectmaster." The cultivator named Kong Ping nodded with a serious expression and reached out to take the jade slip. Then, with a sway of his body, he vanished without a trace. It's a pity that a spirit-restricting array has been set up within a radius of 500 miles. The messaging talisman can't transmit any information at all. Otherwise, why would it be so troublesome? There's also the risk of exposure. The tall and skinny old man sighed as he watched his disciple leave. Just as he was about to get up, he was shocked and said, True Monarch Ling Coffin, the heart demon goo. Soon. Just wait for another half a month, and I'm confident that I can get rid of the heart demon goo. I hope this battle can be delayed until half a month later. At that time, I'll be able to be free from the Master's control." Kong Ping's body was like a phantom, walking silently in the mountain forest. Even if he occasionally passed by some cultivators, he could not arouse the slightest bit of attention. In terms of hiding his body, he was extremely proud in his heart. Among the God Realm cultivators, he was definitely at the top level, even if he was not the best. Therefore, he seemed to be quite relaxed along the way. More smoothly, he avoided the inspection of 3 groups of cultivators. "It's here at the foot of the yellow rock." Kong Ping's face was filled with joy. With a sway of his body, he came to the side of a yellow rock that was taller than a person. With a flip of his hand, he took out a jade map and then casually touched it. "Ah, so the place where you exchange information is here. It's really secretive. If you didn't lead the way, it would have been really difficult to find." Suddenly, a sigh came from the void. Immediately after, a special force instantly landed on Kong Ping's body, causing his body to stiffen. Oh no! Kong Ping's expression changed drastically. He immediately exerted force in his hand, trying to crush the jade map. However, under that special force, even the divine thought in his body seemed to be frozen, let alone exerting force. He could not move at all. "You're trying to destroy this jade map in front of me, Gu Peng. Aren't you underestimating me? A golden core cultivator?" A cold voice was heard. Subsequently, perfected Lord Gu Peng in a white Taoist robe floated in front of Kong Ping and easily took the jade map from his hand. With a thought, the contents of the jade map flowed into his mind. Oh no! Kong Ping's eyes widened as a look of despair flashed across his eyes. It had never crossed his mind that a gold core realm expert would personally follow him, a little cultivator at the divine realm. As expected, I only mentioned it casually in the meeting hall, and your sect leader couldn't wait to record the news that Senior Wang Weijin might have appeared. As expected, Spies are especially hateful. There are so many secrets recorded in here. The Luotian sect should be killed. Perfected Lord Gu Peng sighed. Subsequently, his expression changed as a cold gleam flashed through his eyes. He then erased and changed the information in the jade map and tossed it under the yellow stone. He then reached out and pinched Kong Ping's neck directly. He said softly, "All right, it doesn't matter if they believe me or not. At least I've set a trap for them. As for you, come with me. It's up to you whether you can live or not." Perfected Lord Gu Peng's body swayed as he spoke. He immediately disappeared like a phantom. My spiritual energy suddenly increased. Could it be that the war has already begun? Or is it another small-scale war? Ziyua's ability had been elevated to its peak. He walked out of the mountain's belly with the momentum and happened to notice that his spiritual energy had increased tremendously. He could not help but feel surprised that his spiritual energy had increased by tens of millions in a short period of time. However, although he was curious, he did not pay too much attention to it. He was dressed in a rogue cultivator's attire, revealing his mid-stage aperture awakening immortal method realm. Soon, he joined a group of rogue cultivators. From the casual conversation, he learned that there were no changes in the outside world while he was in closed-door cultivation. There were no conflicts between the major immortal sects and the true devil sect. However, there was a piece of news that spread among the rogue cultivators. A rogue cultivator said to Ziyue confidently, "The sect masters of the four major immortal sects have already made their move. They've begun to attack the remaining true devil Kurong and the Black Mountain Old Devil respectively. They must kill them before they return to the true Devil Mountain." Oh right, the golden core powerhouses of the four major immortal sects have set a time for the general attack. It'll be 3 days later. 3 days later, the sect masters of the four major immortal sects will kill the true devil Kurong and the Black Mountain Old Devil together. They'll meet the 100,000 cultivators here and attack the true devil sect together. This time, we must completely eradicate all the devil cultivators in the cloud-piercing mountain range. The sect masters of the four major immortal sects have made their move. We've already decided to launch a general attack in 3 days. Ziyue was a little confused. Although the true devil sect was indeed worthy of the sect masters of the four major immortal sects appearing. After all, this devil cultivator had been wreaking havoc in the cloud-piercing mountain range for nearly 10,000 years. Almost all the sects and immortal powers had suffered at their hands, and they had an endless grudge with them. However, was it really so hasty? Moreover, was it so easy to find out about the news of a golden core stage ranker? An early stage aperture opening realm cultivator was already clear. In addition, he had even announced the time of the general attack. Was he afraid that the devil cultivator wouldn't be prepared? No, something's not right. Ziyue quickly shook his head. Immortal cultivators, which one of them wasn't talented, intelligent, and cunning? How could it be so simple? Ziyue couldn't help but look around, and even quietly use the big hole observation technique. Suddenly, his face couldn't help but freeze. It seems that the number of divine realm experts in the vicinity has decreased by a lot. Moreover, most of the divine realm cultivators who have appeared are at the early stage of the divine realm. Those who have reached the middle stage of the divine realm and above, except for a few rogue cultivators, have all disappeared. In addition, the patrolling pattern of the sect disciples has also changed, showing a state of tension on the outside and relaxation on the inside. Ziyue's eyes flashed, and he quickly made a discovery. It seems that the four major immortal sects are indeed preparing to take action. However, it's not 3 days later, but as Ziyue was deep in thought, he suddenly sensed a peeping gaze. Startled, he quickly looked over and happened to see an old man who looked like a withered skeleton, wearing a slightly old and ordinary robe. He was grinning and looking at him with a smile. This old man looked very old. His hair was sparse, and only a few strands were hanging on his head. There were only a few yellow front teeth hanging loosely in his mouth, and the wrinkles on his face were very obvious. However, when Ziyue looked at the old man, his heart skipped a beat and a trace of surprise immediately appeared on his face. Although the old man's appearance showed that he was only at the middle stage of the enlightenment stage, Zoe, after all, was also a figure standing at the peak of the divine realm. He had seen and killed many experts in the gold core realm, so naturally, he could clearly sense the simple and natural Taoist connotation in the old man's body. That was a Taoist connotation that was more abundant than any of the genuine cultivators in the gold core realm he had ever seen. Gold core, this is an expert in the gold core realm. Moreover, his strength is absolutely beyond imagination. Who is he? Ziyue was shocked. Chapter 560. If I'm not mistaken, you should be Taoist Master Biming, who has risen to fame recently and can kill a gold core cultivator with the cultivation of the deity realm, right? At this moment, Bai Ziyue could clearly hear the old man's voice in front of him. Senior, are you the number one person in the cloud-piercing mountain range, Supreme Elder Wang Weijin of the Qingshu sect? Bai Ziyue's expression also calmed down very quickly. With a quick thought, he quickly guessed the other party's identity and asked, Haha, I didn't expect that after staying here for 7 days, deceiving so many people and wandering around in front of Jin Jian, I was easily seen through by you. Wang Weijin laughed heartily before his expression turned solemn as he said, I've heard of your battle achievements, and I know that your methods are quite extraordinary. But what I want to ask is, where did you get your magnetic grand incisor? I got it by chance, I can't tell you. Ziyue shook his head and said without changing his expression, Huh, the magnetic force cutter is one of the great divine powers of the Qingshu sect. Aren't you afraid that I'll take it back? Wang Weijin frowned and said, The magnetic force cutter first came from the gold core realm itinerant cultivator, the magnetic force sage. Before the magnetic force sage died, he publicly sold this great divine powers in exchange for magic treasures many times. It's not unique to the Qingshu sect. The Yuanling sect of the Gusha mountain range, the Wangsu pavilion of the Chujing mountain range, and several other super forces, the heavenly spirit sect, the divine demon sect, and the 9-star Dao palace, all have it. Senior Wang, how can you be sure that I learned it from the Qingshu sect? Ziyue said with a calm face. It was because he knew the origin of the magnetic force cutter that he dared to show such a method publicly. He was not afraid of Wang Weijin's questioning. So, you're really not from the cloud-piercing mountain range. But thinking about it, it's unlikely that a person with such extraordinary talent like you would be born in a place like the cloud-piercing mountain range. Wang Weijin nodded. She looked as if she had expected it. Then she said, Since we have met, it must be fate. I have an opportunity to give you. Do you want it? Opportunity? Your opportunity shouldn't be that easy to obtain, right? However, you can talk about it, but whether I want it or not is up to me to decide. Ziyue smiled and said with a relaxed expression, If it was before, when he faced Wang Weijin, who was at the pinnacle of the Golden Core realm, the number one person in the cloud-piercing mountain range, he would naturally be nervous and fearful. This was an instinctive reverence for powerful existences. But now, even though his strength was only at the God realm, if he erupted with his full strength, it was sufficient to possess a combat strength comparable to the peak of the Golden Core realm. Even though the time was extremely short, he was confident that even if he wasn't a match for Chen Shi, it wouldn't be difficult for him to escape. Naturally, the reverence in his heart also faded. Good, it's really bright and spacious. Then I won't hide it from you. Since you're in the piercing cloud mountain range, you should have heard about the grade of the spiritual vein in the Qingsu mountain range of the Qingsu sect. Because of the starlight gathering spirit formation, it has now reached the peak of the early stage of the 5th grade and is about to be upgraded. However, even though the spiritual energy in the spiritual vein is abundant, even comparable to the level of the middle of the 5th grade spiritual vein, it still hasn't been able to truly upgrade. Look at my appearance. At most, I only have a few decades left of my lifespan. I can't wait for long. I just happened to hear the news of the appearance of the true devil sect and the appearance of the 5th grade spiritual vein. The core of this 5th grade spiritual vein can definitely promote my Qingsu sect spiritual vein to an official upgrade. At that time, the spiritual vein will be upgraded, the heavens will fall, and the opportunity will also descend. Therefore, I want to ask for your help to sneak into the depths of the spiritual vein with me, cut the dragon vein, and obtain the core of the spiritual vein. Of course, as a reward, I can invite you to enter the Qing Su sect and share this opportunity together. Wang Weijin grinned and said with a seemingly sincere face, "Go deep into the true devil sect, cut the dragon vein, and take the core of the spiritual vein. Senior, there are several golden core realm experts in the Qing Su sect, and you're looking for me, a divine realm cultivator? Furthermore, the opportunity that Senior spoke of requires me to directly enter your Qing Su sect's mountain gate to enjoy. Senior, do you think that I, Taoist master Biming, am weak and can be bullied?" Ziyue raised his eyes and said with a cold snort, "The core of the spiritual vein was often the foundation of the development of an immortal sect. It was definitely an important place, and there were bound to be many experts guarding it. Even when the various immortal sects were attacking the true devil sect, it was still extremely dangerous. Not to mention that Wang Weijin didn't utilize the golden core realm experts of his own sect, but invited a god-rank realm cultivator, like him, to participate instead. So, the considerations behind this were slightly deep. For example, Wang Weijin was at the peak of the golden core realm. Which one of them was not a cunning and scheming person? Was he being used as cannon fodder? As for that opportunity, Ziyue himself was also a member of the Qing Su sect. If he really wanted to obtain it, he would only need to stay in the sect with the identity of the Karakoram savant. Why would he take such a huge risk? Little friend, this is a misunderstanding. What I really value is actually the cutting power of little friend's magnetic slash. Because only this great divine ability can be very smooth and under the condition of not damaging the core of the spiritual vein. Cut it off from the spiritual vein. Although this great divine ability is owned by my Qing Su sect, because of the difficulty of cultivation, the highest level of cultivation in our Qing Su sect is only at the small success stage. It is simply difficult to display the characteristics of this great divine ability that can cut through everything, cut through mountains and seas, and pass through everything. I know that fellow Taoist is able to kill a golden core realm expert at the divine realm because of this great divine ability. I think you have already cultivated the magnetic slash to the great success stage, or even to the perfection stage. In this way, even if the power is slightly weaker than the golden core realm, it can still smoothly cut off the dragon vein and take away the core of the spiritual vein. As for the opportunity, I see that fellow Taoist has also reached the peak of the divine realm. If you can use the opportunity of my Qing Su sect spiritual vein to advance, it is not impossible for you to step into the golden core realm in one go. At least, this chance can be increased by more than 30%. Can't this be called a great opportunity? Wang Weijin repeatedly waved his hand, and then after thinking for a while, he could not help but say, "Of course, fellow Taoist, it is normal for you to have many worries. How about this? I can give you a middle-grade golden core realm treasure as a reward. What do you think? In addition, I have a piece of information about the Magnetic King, also known as the Magnetic Sage, to tell you. I don't know if you're interested in it. Although a golden core realm treasure is good, I do not lack it. However, I am very interested in the warships made by the weapon combination hall of your Qingshu sect. If this middle-grade golden core realm treasure is exchanged for a 4th-grade warship, it is not bad. As for the information about the Magnetic Sage, as far as I know, he disappeared more than 1,000 years ago. Moreover, his information should not be of any use to me, right?" Ziyue smiled and said in a calm voice. After all, he was also a member of the Qing Su sect. Since Wang Weijin came to ask for help, he did not mind helping if it was within his ability. Of course, the necessary benefits naturally could not be left out. After all, he was now a 9-star divine realm expert, North Underworld spiritual master. A 4th-grade warship. Fellow Taoist, you are asking for too much. You must know that an ordinary 3rd-grade warship is comparable to a low-grade golden core realm treasure. The cost of a 4th grade warship is hundreds of times that of a 3rd grade warship. In terms of value, it is even more valuable than 3 middle grade Golden Core Realm treasures. Wang Weijian's eyes widened, and his yellow teeth moved up and down as if they were about to fall off at any moment. After a while, he said with a pained expression, "I can give you the grade 4 battleship. I happen to have a perfectly intact 4th grade warship with me. Not only is it spacious and comfortable, but its defense, speed, and attack are also very strong. Especially its speed, when fully unleashed, it is not inferior to a middle-grade Golden Core Realm cultivator flying at full speed. It is enough for you to use for 1,000 years. However, fellow Taoist, you must follow my instructions and help me take away the Spirit Veins core as soon as possible. Of course, I will also protect your safety and not let those demon bastards threaten you." As for the information about the Magnetic Sage, do you know why the Magnetic Sage dared to resell his great divine ability, the Magnetic Sage, so many times? You must know that once the enemy grasps the mysteries of his great divine ability and specifically targets it, it will be a great threat. Wang Weijian sneered. Then why? Ziyue's heart trembled. Wasn't he also targeted by the Qian Yuan True Monarch because he exposed his offensive methods? If not for his rapid improvement in strength, he would have been in great danger. Perfected Lord Qian Yuan had only guessed the characteristics of his attack and made a targeted arrangement, which made him feel threatened. Perfected Lord Magnetism had directly sold the great supernatural power cultivation method that he had created. If he was targeted, it might even cause a backlash from the great supernatural power. His mind and primordial spirit would be shaken, which was definitely more dangerous. Therefore, the Magnetic Sage must have something else to rely on. Outsiders only know that the true Lord of Essence Fused created the great Essence Fused Magnetic Slash, which is extremely powerful. What they don't know is that he went on to invent a Tao technique that is far superior to the great Essence-Fused Magnetic Slash, the Essence-Fused Divine Light. Wang Weijian replied, "Tao technique? The Magnetic Divine Light?" Ziyue was shocked. Yes, it is a Tao technique that is stronger than the great divine ability. With this Tao technique, he has the means to be invincible and can be crowned as a king in the Golden Core Realm, known as the Magnetic Sage. You must know that every Golden Core Realm expert who can be crowned as a king has almost invincible battle strength. Even when I reached the peak of the Golden Core Realm, I was not able to be crowned as a king. Now that my lifespan is nearing its end, my chi and blood are declining, and the 5 decay of heaven and man is descending, and my strength has decreased greatly. I, on the other hand, know where the Magneto King fell. I also know that his Tao technique inheritance was carried by him, and it was also lost in that secret place. Wang Weijian smiled and said in a deep voice, Chapter 561. I think that since you've already cultivated the great magnetic slash to such a high level, it would be much easier for you to cultivate the great magnetic divine light. You wouldn't be uninterested in this Tao technique, right? Wang Weijian said with a smile. Where is it? Ziyue raised his eyebrows and said non-committally. He didn't care about this because to him, no matter what kind of divine ability, great divine ability, or even Tao technique, the difficulty of cultivating it was not as great as others imagined. Therefore, even if the so-called great magnetic divine light was really powerful, he would still be cautious. After all, with Wang Weijian's strength at the peak of the Golden Core Realm, he wasn't able to make a move to obtain the Grand Origin Divine Light under the circumstances that he was clearly aware of the location of the Grand Origin Divine Light, and this obviously showed how dangerous and difficult it was. Not to mention, the great magnetic divine lord himself was a regal expert, but he also died in that secret place, Stellar Origin Sacred Mountain. The place where the great magnetic divine lord died was on the Stellar Origin Sacred Mountain. When the Stellar Origin Sacred Mountain was rioting, I happened to be there and saw him fall at the bottom of the mountain with my own eyes. Unfortunately, that place is too dangerous. Even primordial soul realm experts wouldn't dare to go there. Wang Weijin shook her head and sighed. Stellar Origin Sacred Mountain, one of the four most dangerous places in the cloud-piercing mountain range. It said that more than one or two primordial soul realm experts have died in such a place. Ziyue rolled his eyes. He naturally knew how strange and terrifying the Stellar Origin Sacred Mountain was. It was a truly dangerous place. Once an ordinary cultivator stepped in, life and death would be in an instant. It was extremely dangerous. No matter how powerful the great magnetic divine light was, who could obtain it in such a dangerous place? Who would dare to take it? In that case, what was the point of talking about it? That's right. However, that place is actually not the most dangerous place in the Stellar Origin Sacred Mountain. It's just the central region. The great magnetic divine lord was just unlucky to have met with the rioting of the Stellar Origin Sacred Mountain. I think that since you can kill a gold core realm cultivator when you're only at the divine realm, you should wait until you break through to the gold core realm. When you reach the middle stage of the gold core realm, as long as you don't advance too rashly, your safety can still be guaranteed. Naturally, you'll have a chance to find the great magnetic divine lord's legacy and obtain it. Of course, whether you want to go or not is entirely up to you. I'm just informing you. Also, here's the route map. I'll give it to you in advance. Wang Weijin explained with a smile and threw a jade scroll pupil over. Ziyue reached out and grabbed it. Not minding it at all, he tossed it into his bag of holding. Suddenly, Wang Weijin's expression changed. She shouted, "Don't resist. I'll take you away. Prepare to attack." As he spoke, his domain suddenly spread out and enveloped Ziyue. Ziyue's heart tensed up. He sensed that there was no threat in the other party's domain, and only then did he relax, allowing the other party to pull him, and quickly flew towards the location of the True Devil sect. Previously, the four great immortal sects had discussed that they would gather their strength to break through the True Devil sect's protective array. The True Devil sect's 5 evil world extermination formation was not weak. It was a tier 5 great array, with a total of 72 array bases and a large array core. This formation core should be the True Devil sect's paradise magic treasure, the True Devil Paradise. Normally, when guarded by the Devil Lord Jinming, it would be extremely difficult to break through. Therefore, if one wanted to break through the formation, they would have to destroy half of the 72 array bases, which was 36 array bases. If we want to sneak into the depths of the Spirit Vein and cut off the Dragon Vein, then the True Devil sect's Great Mountain Protection Array must be broken first. Otherwise, if we're trapped in the array and catch a turtle in a jar, we will definitely die. Therefore, when they make their move later, we will make our move as well. However, my identity is different after all. Once I show my face, I will definitely attract attention. If I attract the Black Nightmare Devil Lord, that would be bad. Therefore, you will be the one to make the move later. If it really doesn't work, I will make my move in secret. While flying, Wang Weijin also quickly explained to Ziyue via sound transmission. "No problem," Ziyue replied with a calm expression. After a few breaths of time, Ziyue saw that there were indeed hundreds of cultivators in the distance. Cultivators above the middle and late stage of the divine realm were approaching the True Devil sect's great formation at an extremely fast speed. In the lead, there were a total of 8 gold core stage experts rushing out. Among them, Ziyue saw the 2 gold core stage experts of the Qing Su sect, Spiritual Coffin and Spiritual Lord Push Sword. He also saw Spiritual Master Richwater, Master Golden Court, Spiritual Master Huge Axe, Evil Moon Fairy, Spiritual Master Great Sun, and many other familiar experts. Some of them were working together to form a battle formation, while others were traveling alone. Their auras were like rainbows, and their eyes were filled with determination. What was also worth mentioning was that the supreme mountain-crushing True Lord, who had interacted with him before, had also arrived in time and appeared in the crowd. "Quick, change the formation." Within the True Devil sect, a loud shout rang out. At this moment, the experts of the various sects added up to hundreds of experts above the middle and late stage of the divine realm. It was too sudden. There was no warning. In addition, The speed of each expert was extremely fast. In less than 10 breaths of time, they had already rushed to the mountain gate's great formation. Many devil cultivators were unable to react in time. Therefore, it was only at this moment that the aura of the grand formation suddenly rose up in the void, and it quickly recovered. Obviously, although the great formation was in a state of activation before, in order to reduce consumption, it only chose to be in a state of half recovery. Now, the great formation finally began to operate completely. Half recovery, 60% recovery, 70% recovery, when the great formation recovered to 80%. Kill. Suddenly, there was a roar. Then, the Thunder Sect's leader, Supreme Legion, stretched out his hand, and a huge thunderbolt, like a stone pillar, fell down fiercely and hit the great formation. At the same time, the other 7 gold core stage experts and hundreds of divine realm cultivators attacked at the same time. All kinds of magic treasures, magical powers, great magical powers, talismans were quickly thrown out. Rumble. The void trembled. The earth rumbled. The entire great formation suddenly froze. First, it burst out a huge and shining light. Then it dimmed to the extreme. However, the 5th grade great formation was infinitely powerful, and it sat on the 5th grade spiritual vein. It was full of spiritual energy and endless. With so many experts gathered, a terrifying attack landed on it, but it did not completely blow up the great formation. Under the operation of the great formation, the aura rose again and began to recover. Now was the time. However, right at that moment, Grandmaster Ku Jing of the Great Buddhist Sect moved his body. Immediately, a talisman made of a special leather pouch shot out from his hand. The talisman was simple and unadorned, yet it was filled with Tao accumulation. The 5th grade spiritual talisman, the formation-breaking talisman. In the next moment, the formation-breaking talisman directly rushed to the great formation of the true devil sect. It dimmed slightly, and then suddenly burst out violently. Rumble. Another earth-shattering sound was heard. The great formation was broken. A huge hole spanning a few hundred feet in radius instantly appeared in front of everyone. At the same time, the Thunder Sect's leader, Supreme Legion, took a step forward and threw out a black bead. Chi! 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 The bead instantly exploded, turning into streaks of black lightning. These black lightning bolts, like maggots attached to bones, immediately rushed to the great formation's membrane and desperately destroyed the spiritual light on the great formation, preventing the great formation from continuing to recover. Quick charge! Make a move as soon as possible and break the formation foundation. With a loud shout, the cultivators immediately rushed toward the hole in the great formation. You're courting death. Kill. Stop them. Immediately after, within the true devil sect, there were also devil cultivators who acted crazily, blocking and killing them. The battle entered its craziest state at the first moment. Spiritual energy plus 653536 plus 833368 plus 2452165 plus 412,333. In the blink of an eye, the values of the increase in spiritual energy flashed before Ziyue's eyes. This kind of increase in value was extremely shocking. In just a short period of time, Ziyue's spiritual energy had increased by millions. However, in his heart, a trace of heaviness suddenly emerged. Divine realm experts fell one after another. No matter if they were devil cultivators or immortal spell cultivators, those who could cultivate to the divine realm were all people with great talent, and they even needed several hundred years of hard work. In the end, at this moment, they stopped abruptly. This is the world of immortals. There will never be no lack of killing. The so-called battle of the great Tao. How many can truly reach the peak, look down on the world, and live for 10,000 years? Even if it's me, aren't I also struggling to survive in the world of immortals, seeking that slim chance of survival? Ziyue's initial confusion quickly turned into determination, and a trace of indifference and coldness flashed across his eyes. Be careful. This five-fiend world extermination formation has a baleful aura that soars into the heavens. It has a great impact on one's mind. Wang Weijun reminded him, and then shouted in a low voice, "Let's go." "Go in." "Understood." Ziyue nodded solemnly, and immediately stepped into the true devil sect with Wang Weijun. The moment Ziyue and the others stepped into the great array. "Earth-shaking talisman. Quick!" True Lord Ling Coffin roared, and a talisman shot out from his hand, fiercely landing on the ground. Wong, Wong, Wong. The void shook, the earth cracked, and the sky collapsed. The entire earth was almost lifted open, and endless mountain rocks were exposed. There were even large areas of the ground that suddenly collapsed, revealing the true palace and buildings beneath the ground. There were also endless ghosts, their baleful auras soaring into the sky. Within the Qingsu sect, there were countless low-level disciples who let out miserable cries. Large patches of them fell. The earth-shaking talisman was a fifth-grade talisman. It was powerful and could shake the entire mountain range. Although it was not a great threat to cultivators above the divine realm, or even cultivators above the aperture-opening realm, it was definitely a disaster for devil cultivators at the Qi condensation stage. Especially this true devil mountain spirit vein, which was hidden deep in the ground, was the true mountain gate of the true devil sect, the place where the low-level disciples cultivated had always been in the underground cave. At this time, the earth-shaking talisman was activated, and the earth cracked, immediately causing a collapse. Not only did countless low-level disciples fall with it, but it also caused a slight shift in the position of more than a dozen large array foundations, affecting the operation of the large array. Chapter 562. Quick, spread out and kill. We must destroy the formation base in the shortest time possible. Supreme, Li Jun roared. His figure flashed, and in an instant he crossed 7,000 feet. He stretched out his hand, and immediately an incomparably thick thunderbolt struck down. Rumble! The heavens and the earth exploded. The thunderbolt, which was like the might of the heavens, fiercely struck a pavilion. This pavilion was one of the 72 formation bases of the true devil sect. Not only was it protected by a small formation, but there were also 3 divine realm demonic cultivators inside the pavilion, along with dozens of enlightenment realm cultivators and hundreds of Qi refinement realm demonic cultivators. At this moment, their auras were connected, and at the same time, they added their strength, desperately trying to block this destructive attack. Boom! The formation defense was torn apart in the blink of an eye, and then the pavilion collapsed. The terrifying power of thunder and lightning did not diminish. As it wantonly moved about, a large number of low-level demonic cultivators were immediately turned into ashes. Fortunately, the 3 divine realm cultivators had just breathed a sigh of relief when another equally thick thunderbolt struck down fiercely, and all of them were charred black. Then there was the third. The fourth, Supreme Li Jun, did not even look and quickly rushed in another direction. The moment he left, the small pavilion suddenly exploded, and the foundation of the array was destroyed. At the same time, the other Golden Core Realm experts and Divine Realm cultivators did not care about the entanglement of the surrounding demonic cultivators. They madly rushed to various places and attacked the formation bases. Supreme Ling Coffin summoned a giant sword, and like a heavenly slash, it crazily smashed down. Rumble! A formation base was destroyed in an instant. Supreme Pushing Sword's long sword was like silver, and it was unbelievably nimble. In a flash, it crossed a distance of hundreds of feet and rushed into a formation base. The long sword slashed quickly, and the demonic cultivators did not even have time to react before they were killed by him. Then he stretched out his hand, and the long sword suddenly soared into the sky. Chi! 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 Then it suddenly turned into a stream of light, and directly pierced into a formation base. Great divine ability, great 5 elements destruction, divine sword. Bang! The array base was instantly shattered. However, at this time, there were also 5 demonic monarchs in the Gold Core realm among the demonic Tao cultivators. Some of them were fighting against True Monarch, mountain-crushing True Monarch, and the others, while some of them were rushing toward the group of Divine Realm cultivators. As soon as they displayed their terrifying offensive skills, a group of elite disciples for various sects was also killed. Zuf followed Wang Weijin inside, and what he saw was an intense battle. Let's go. With me here, no attacks will land on you. You can attack without worry. Wang Weijin sent a voice transmission and immediately pulled by Ziyue to the base of the array. The array base was in the shape of a tall tower. The tower itself was an upper-grade magic treasure. 3 cultivators in the Divine Realm and more than 50 cultivators in the Enlightened Aperture Realm were guarding it together. Their auras were connected to the whole tower. At the top of the tower, a golden light shot out and attacked the cultivators of the various sects nearby. Ziyue's expression didn't change. He reached out, and a ball of light flew out and landed on the tower in the blink of an eye. Divine ability, minor forbidden spirit technique. Chi. Suddenly, the tower that was exuding endless power just a moment ago quieted down. Not only the tower itself, but also the cultivators guarding the tower, all of the spirit light on their bodies suddenly dissipated. The fluctuations of the cultivator's true sense were completely sealed. This divine ability is a bit strange. A trace of surprise flashed across Wang Weijin's face. Even though the mystical ability did not possess any offensive capabilities, it was still quite useful. In particular, when Bai Ziyue used it, the extremely pure power of his divine sense, coupled with the fact that he had reached perfection in his divine sense, immediately made the effect of the attack particularly obvious. Ziyue's expression didn't change. The flying sword in his body rushed out and performed the breaking all skills together. It immediately turned into a flowing light and slashed down fiercely. Rumble! If the tower had been revived, it would have been possible to resist it with the spiritual light of the magic treasure itself and the power of several divine realm cultivators and dozens of demonic cultivators at the aperture opening realm. But now the spiritual power was quiet, and the power in the bodies of the demonic cultivators was also sealed. How could the tower itself, which was comparable to the upper-grade magic treasure, resist Ziyue's Dark North Sword? Even at this moment, because Wang Weijin was beside him, he only maintained the power of this attack at the level of a half-step gold core realm. But when the flying sword slashed the tower, it was easily cut into 2 pieces. Moreover, the remaining power didn't diminish, and it hit the array base onto the ground. Bang! The array base was instantly pierced and then lost its function. As expected of Dark North Shinrin, his strength is really extraordinary. Wang Weijin praised, and she was also surprised. She thought that Ziyue's strength was strong because of the magnetic slash, but she didn't expect that his other divine abilities were also extraordinary. With the divine ability that could seal the opponent, which cultivator in the same realm wouldn't have a headache when facing it. Coupled with his flying sword across the sky, there was only one sword in all creation. Once the sword was unleashed, it could break all spells. At least in Wang Weijin's more than 2,000 years of experience, there were very few people who could be a match for him. A few amazing cultivators who were born with super immortal cultivation methods might be a match for him. But when she thought of Dark North Shinrin's unparalleled attack, the magnetic slash, she fell silent again. In the entire firmament territory, how many people in the God realm could fight against the immortal cultivation methods? As far as she knew, at least in the last 100 years, no one could do it. She couldn't help but think that with Dark North Shinrin's talent and combat strength, his real background must be extraordinary. Could he be a peerless genius secretly cultivated by super force? Duet broke the array base with one sword, but he was very calm. With his means, if it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to expose his real strength, he could have broken the array base without using 2 divine abilities. Okay, let's continue. Wang Weijin's heart jolted. She hurriedly brought by Ziyue along and charged to the next formation base. As for the demonic sect cultivators who had not died, no one cared about them in the urgent situation. The second array base was a big hall. The hall itself was not a magic treasure, but there was a fourth grade formation in the array base, and there were 5 God Realm cultivators in it. Bai Ziyue had to expend quite a bit of effort to break through it, using the lesser forbidden spirit art, Annihilation Divine Light, and 1 sword to break all laws. However, Ziyue's method of breaking 2 array bases in a row finally attracted the attention of some demonic sect cultivators. At this moment, 5 demonic sect cultivators in the late stage of the God Realm rushed quickly. The 5 demonic sect cultivators came from the same source, and they cultivated a chi conversion and fusion method. Not only could their chi be superimposed, but when the 5 of them formed a battle formation, their combat strength could soar. Moreover, because the 5 of them came from the same source and cultivated demonic sect methods, they actually came up with a rare combination of divine abilities, living god and demon. With this combination ability, they could be considered as one of the strongest in the entire True Devil sect. With this, they had the strength of a 9-star deity realm, which was comparable to the top true disciples. Kill! The 5 of them shouted at the same time, and a strange black chi quickly surged and wrapped all of them. Almost instantly, they were all enveloped together. At the same time, a huge black shadow like a divine demon rushed out. This divine demon was unparalleled in power. Every move seemed to contain terrifying power. Previously, they had relied on this divine demon to kill the 5 great Buddhist sect cultivators. This was the combination of divine abilities they had created, living god and demon. The idea of this divine ability is quite ingenious. Ziyue raised his eyes slightly, revealing a trace of surprise. But soon, a disapproving look flashed across his face. Although this divine ability was ingenious, the power of the combination was indeed very strong. If he was facing an ordinary divine realm cultivator, he would indeed have a great advantage. But Ziyue was not an ordinary divine realm cultivator. His realm level was not much weaker than an ordinary golden elixir realm cultivator. Naturally, he could easily see through the weakness of this divine ability and found at least 5 places where it was not working well. So he moved his mind. The flying sword in his body quickly rushed out. This sword, he did not even add the divine ability, 1 sword break all techniques. He only relied on the power of the North Sea flying sword, which was a supreme grade magic treasure, and the power of his own divine sense to cast it. The sword struck out, only a little, fast to the extreme. Then, with a light tap, it landed on the neck of the huge divine demon. Puff! The sword light swallowed and spat. With a boom, the entire divine demon immediately scattered in all directions like smoke. Suddenly, 5 demonic cultivators who were vomiting blood and looking dispirited appeared in the void. There was a trace of disbelief in their eyes. 1 sword? Just 1 sword? Just 1 sword? They were complacent and thought that it was difficult for anyone in the divine realm to match their combined divine ability. But it was broken. Could this person be a golden elixir realm cultivator? Die! Ziyue's eyes were indifferent. He immediately controlled the flying sword to turn and make an incomparably mysterious arc puff. Puff! Puff! In an instant, 5 cultivators whose strength had reached the late divine realm had fallen. Then, Ziyue took advantage of the situation and put away their spoils of war. I thought I had overestimated you as much as possible, but I didn't expect that I still underestimated you. Although this combined divine ability is slightly flawed, it is still exquisite and extraordinary. It is obvious that it has been guided and improved by a golden elixir realm cultivator of the demonic path. The weakness is no longer obvious. At least, an ordinary cultivator at the peak of the divine realm wouldn't be able to find it. Even if they found it, it would be difficult to grasp that fleeting opportunity. I didn't expect you to find it so easily and break it. Seeing this, Wang Weijin immediately revealed a look of surprise and bewilderment. After all, being strong did not mean that one's realm was high. There were many mysteries that one could not detect unless one's realm was high to a certain extent and one's comprehension of the great Tao of heaven and earth had reached a certain level. Chapter 563. Although this divine power is wonderful, it is too bloated and naturally has many weaknesses. As long as I find the weaknesses, it is not difficult to break it. Zua said indifferently, but his figure also rushed to the next formation base in an instant. Then how many weaknesses have you found in the divine power? Wang Weijin could not help but ask. Fifth, Zua said, an array of divine obliteration light was shot out again. The divine obliteration light was full of destruction and the power of life and death, and it swept directly toward a pavilion. Chi, chi, chi. The void condensed slightly, and the entire pavilion, as if it had been attacked by time, turned yellow, darkened, and then immediately collapsed and turned into ashes. At the same time, the bodies of the dozens of demonic cultivators in the attic rapidly disintegrated from top to bottom, turning into ashes. They no longer existed. The annihilation of divine light was by Ziyue's early sect, the Chuyang sect's divine light. Regardless of whether it was in terms of exquisiteness or power, it was extremely powerful. Now that Bai Ziyue had performed it with his extremely pure divine thought, it was as easy as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Even if he deliberately suppressed it, this attack was still half a level higher than the attack of an ordinary expert of the half-step Golden Core realm. Then, Ziyue's flying sword flashed again, turned into a ray of flowing light, and destroyed another formation base directly. Fifth, on the other side, Wang Weijin heard Ziyue's answer, and his face froze. He laughed dryly and said, "That's not bad, well, not bad." His thoughts were indescribably complicated. Even he only saw 3 weaknesses just now. But North Mingzhen saw 5? Didn't this mean that his eyesight was lower than his? Was he lying? He could not help but look at Ziyue again. Seeing that his expression was indifferent and calm, he suddenly felt even more depressed. 31, 32. Oh no, there is not enough time. Perfected cultivator Li Jun had been paying attention to the surrounding situation while attacking the formation base frantically. In the beginning, it was very easy for them to break through the formation base. Using the advantage of surprise attacks, they destroyed one formation base after another. However, as the Devil Cultivators reacted, countless mid and late God Realm Devil Cultivators and Golden Core Realm Devil Cultivators made their moves to entangle the Devil Cultivators. As a result, the speed of destroying the array foundation slowed down. Now a full 90 breaths of time had passed, but only 28 had been destroyed. He was still 4 short of the target of 36. Although for wasn't a lot, it was extremely difficult at this moment. More importantly, time was running out. In the void, the formation rose and began to close. The various treasures that they had used to break the formation had lost their effect one after another. At most, I can hold on for another 10 breaths. Perfected cultivator Li Jun was anxious. In another 10 breaths of time, the entire formation would close up again and be of use. At that time, with the protection of the formation, it would be even more difficult for them to destroy the formation base and completely break through the sect protecting formation of the True Devil sect. Moreover, once they failed to retreat before the Grand Formation closed, they would be suppressed and targeted by the Grand Formation, and they would be trapped. Damn it! Perfected cultivator Li Jun roared, but he was unable to avoid the entanglement of the Devil Lord Chi Mo in front of him. This Devil Lord Chi Mo was only at the early stage of the Golden Core realm and was far inferior to him. However, his speed was extremely fast, and if he attacked him, the other party would immediately flee. If he planned to destroy the formation base, the other party would always have ways to interfere with him, making him extremely uncomfortable. The other Golden Core realm perfected cultivators were also extremely anxious. They all knew the goal of this trip. Out of the 36 array foundations, only 32 had been destroyed. It's too late. No matter what, we must succeed this time. Otherwise, we won't have such a chance again. Perfected cultivator Ku Jing's expression was incomparably grim. Amongst the people present, the one who was most eager to break through the true Devil Sect's mountain gate was none other than their great Buddhist sect. Previously, when the four great demon lords wreaked havoc, their great Buddhist sect was responsible for stopping the true Devil Corona. It could be said that they had suffered heavy losses. Not only did they lose countless elite disciples, even the early-stage Golden Core Realm Buddha Lord was not spared. Therefore, he came in anger this time to avenge his junior brother and the disciples of his sect. Seeing that the formation was about to close, his face trembled and a sense of determination rose in his heart. Golden light flashed on his body as he used the Buddha's Fury Vajra ability to withstand the attack of the white-boned demon lord. Then, he threw out his golden alms bowl. Rumble. There was a loud explosion. A huge mountain collapsed. Inside the huge mountain, there was an array foundation that was more than 10 meters tall. The moment it was hit by the golden alms bowl, it shattered with a loud bang. However, perfected cultivator Ku Jing did not have it easy this time. Even though the Buddha's Fury Vajra ability's defensive power was not weak, it could not withstand the full force of the white-boned demon lord attack. He was immediately severely injured. At the same time, perfected cultivator Gu Peng of the Tai E-Sword sect gritted his teeth and shot out the divine arrow of annihilation. The divine arrow of annihilation immediately turned into a stream of light, forcing the Golden Core Realm demonic cultivator in front of him to retreat. At the same time, it ruthlessly smashed into an array foundation, destroying it. Perfected cultivator Push Sword roared and suddenly burst out. After all, he was the only Golden Core Realm cultivator in the cloud-piercing mountain range who had condensed a top-grade Golden Core. His strength and foundation were far superior to other Golden Core Realm cultivators of the same realm. At this time, he suddenly burst out. Under the violent surge of power in his Golden Core, his aura was extremely ferocious. With just one sword, he sent an early-stage Golden Core Realm demonic cultivator in front of him flying. Then, his figure flashed and appeared in front of an array foundation. He struck out with his palm. Like a blue cloud covering the sky, several divine realm demonic cultivators and dozens of enlightened realm demonic cultivators were instantly crushed into minced meat. Moreover, the remaining force did not diminish and landed on the array foundation, which also collapsed. The collapse of 3 array foundations in succession immediately made everyone's spirits rise. The other cultivators also burst out with all their might, wanting to take the opportunity to destroy the last array foundation. However, at this time, the demonic cultivators also went all out. Compared to the cultivators of the various sects, the demonic cultivators were even crazier. Each demonic cultivator performed the blood-burning secret technique at the same time, and their strength suddenly increased by more than half. At this time, some high-level cultivators who had been coerced and tempted to defect and then lurked in the various sects also rebelled at the same time and attacked their comrades around them. Immediately, the cultivators of the various sects suffered heavy losses, and their offensive power was greatly reduced. Retreat. Perfected cultivator Li Jun looked at the array that was about to close in the void and knew that it was impossible. He shouted helplessly and then turned to rush out of the array. Demon Lord Chi Mo was secretly relieved when he saw this and did not stop him. Perfected cultivator Ling Coffin, perfected cultivator Ku Jing, perfected cultivator Gu Peng, perfected cultivator Push Sword, perfected cultivator Bai, and the others were unable to continue attacking at this time. They could only give up and rush out of the array. The momentum of the cultivators of the various sects was greatly reduced. Even if they were unwilling, they had to retreat with the others. It seems that the old guy really didn't come. In that case, none of you can leave today. At this time, a wanton laughter was heard. Immediately after, a black-robed figure with an aura as vast as the abyss suddenly rushed out. Just by standing there, It seemed as if the entire world had turned dark. He suddenly waved his hand, and the world suddenly darkened. In the void, a huge, pitch-black screen of light suddenly appeared. The black screen of light flashed and blocked in front of everyone. Not good. It's the Black Nightmare Devil King. This is the true Devil Paradise? Perfected cultivator Li Jun and the others were shocked. A trace of panic also appeared on the faces of the others. If it was at the beginning, even if the Black Nightmare Devil King really appeared in front of them, they would not be too concerned. This was because they were already mentally prepared to encounter the Black Nightmare Devil King. They had also made a detailed plan to deal with him. Although the black screen of light was strong, they were confident that they could break through it in 1 or 2 breaths of time. However, at this time, the array was about to recover. 1 or 2 breaths of time was extremely precious. Once the Great Formation was revived, even if the 35 formation bases were destroyed and the power of the Great Formation was greatly reduced, it would still be able to suppress all of them and strengthen the devil cultivators. If this continued, they would be in a truly dangerous situation. Forget it. It seems that I still need to make a move. This is... Seeing the Black Nightmare Devil King suddenly appear, Wang Weijun sighed. Just as he was about to make a move, he suddenly felt Zue beside him and lightly swiped his hand. Immediately after, he saw a huge, yet extremely thin, black line suddenly jump out from his hand. In a flash, it quickly rushed into the distance. Great Theurgy, Great Magnetic Slash. Wang Weijun's eyes widened in shock. The power of this attack was not obvious at all, as if it was soundless. However, as the Great Elder of the Clear Void sect, he naturally knew the cultivation method of the Great Magnetic Slash and knew the characteristics of this Great Theurgy. Of course, he knew that only when an immortal spell cultivator cultivated this Great Theurgy to the pinnacle would they be able to completely restrain the chaotic magnetic force and compress it into a thin line. From there, they would be able to explode with an extremely tyrannical power. He originally thought that Taoist Master Northern Darkness had only cultivated this Great Theurgy to the Great Mastery stage. He never expected that his opponent had reached the Great Mastery stage. Most importantly, even if many cultivators were to cultivate this great divine ability to perfection, they wouldn't be able to cultivate it to such an extent as he did, without making a sound or making a sound. If not for the fact that I was right beside him and watched with my own eyes, I would not have discovered that he had unleashed this attack. This is something that can only be done when all of the spiritual energy in the Great Magnetic Slash has been circulated to the pinnacle. I remember that when cultivating the Great Magnetic Slash, one needs to use the power of 1,107 acupoints. In other words, in order to unleash the full power of this Great Theurgy, one must have at least 1,107 acupoints in their body unblocked. This means Wang Weijun was truly shocked. Even their Clear Void sect's peerless genius, Wang Nijian, had only ignited 1,110 acupoints. And this Taoist Master Northern Darkness clearly had even more. Chapter 564. This was because the number and location of the ignited acupoints in the Taoist Master Baiming's body could not just coincide with the magnetism Great Sacred Art. In other words, the level of Ziyue's cultivation technique was definitely higher than that of the Magnetism King and the Magnetism True Lord. With such a starting point, once Ziyue became an Aura's Core Stage cultivator, he might not be able to become a king ranker like the Magnetism True Lord, but at least in terms of probability, he would far surpass the average Aura's Core Stage cultivator. The moment the Magnetic Slash was unleashed, it was silent, but it was also extremely fast. In a flash, it had already arrived in front of an array foundation. The base of the array happened to be on top of a gigantic, demonic god golden elephant. The material of the demonic god golden elephant was gold, and not only was it extremely precious, it was also shockingly hard, comparable to a high-grade defensive magic treasure. With such a huge piece, even an Aura's core stage expert would have to expend a lot of effort to break it open. However, under Zue's magnetic slash, with a chi sound, it was immediately cut into two halves. As if it was effortless, it took the opportunity to cut off the array foundation beneath the demonic god golden statue. At this time, the power of the magnetic slash still did not decrease, and the remaining power did not decrease. It slashed through the air like a hot knife through butter, directly rushing to the other array foundation. Similarly, the second array foundation was cut off. As a result, the remaining force of the attack crashed into the huge mountain behind him and sank deep into it. The moment Yue destroyed the two array foundations, the array that had just risen up and was about to close suddenly collapsed. The Yin Qi, baleful Qi, ghost Qi, and foul Qi that enveloped the boundless void, along with the sudden break of the formation, they all dissipated in an instant. High up in the sky, the sunlight turned into strands of golden silk and descended. It was dazzling and warm, blowing away the haze. Take advantage of this moment. Let's go. Seeing this, Wang Weijin hurriedly said in a low voice. Zue nodded his head. He was clear that now that the great formation had been broken, the great battle between the various immortal sects and the true devil sect was about to officially begin. Naturally, he did not want to participate, so he allowed Wang Weijin to pull him along, and quickly rushed towards the depths of the true devil sect. The array formation is broken. The true devil sect's protective array has been broken. Broken? Sure enough, it was broken. Ha, that's great. As expected, the heavens are protecting my immortal sect. This time, the true devil sect will definitely die. Voices of surprise and excitement rang out instantly. The disciples of the major celestial sects, and even the golden core cultivators who had just fallen into despair had smiles on their faces. Following that, they all revealed puzzled expressions. Who was the one who attacked this time? The Great Magnetic Slash. This is the mark left behind by the Great Magnetic Slash. Its power is at least equivalent to the full force attack of a late-stage golden core cultivator. The Great Magnetic Slash is one of the great divine powers of the Qingshu sect. Could it be that a senior from the Qingshu sect has made a move? Could it be Senior Wang Weijin? Not necessarily. Although Martial Uncle has cultivated the Great Essence-fused Magnetic Slash, he is not proficient in this great divine ability. He only achieved initial success in this divine ability 100 years ago. Now, even if he had reached greater mastery or even perfection, it was impossible for him to not cause a stir when he used it. This is because the number of acupoints ignited in the body of the user has to match the level of the divine ability. Martial Uncle has only ignited 1,000 acupoints, which is not comparable to the 1,100 acupoints of this great magnetic slash. True Lord Ling Coffin hurriedly shook his head and said, I thought of someone. Who? Taoist Master Biming. It is said that he is a super existence in the middle and late stages of the divine realm. It's him? It's really possible. Previously, when I fought with him in the Lang Dang Mountain, the other party was right in front of me. With this great magnetic slash, he killed the Shadow Devil Monarch at the Golden Core stage. Another thing worth mentioning is that after that, the 9-star Dao Palace's true Lord Qian Yuan suddenly attacked him. Because I was fighting with the Devil Cultivator, I did not participate. After that, I rushed to the battlefield to observe. The marks of the great magnetic slash were just as deep and terrifying as this. Now, that true Lord Qian Yuan was nowhere to be seen. There were traces of the great magnetic slash here. Don't tell me he was the one who won that battle. At this moment, true Lord Jun, you could not help but speak in surprise, his heart filled with shock. Because there was no corpse of true Lord Qian Yuan left at the scene, he did not know that true Lord Qian Yuan had already died. But at this moment, he had such a guess in his heart. So strong? True Lord Qian Yuan also has the battle strength of a mid-stage golden core stage cultivator. But looking at the traces of that attack, it really is possible. Everyone could not help but be bewildered. Thoughts flashed through their minds, as they frantically sent voice transmissions. How fast were the thoughts of immortal spell cultivators? Therefore, even though they had a lot of exchanges, the time that had passed was extremely short. On the other side, the hearts of the devil cultivators of the true devil sect jumped at this moment, and their faces were filled with incomparable shock. The five-fiend world devastating array was broken? It was broken? Who was it? Even devil monarch Zhen Yu's expression was incomparably ugly at this moment. He had not expected that his great array would be broken just as he was about to capture all the high-level cultivators of the various immortal sects in one fell swoop. His plan had also come to nothing. Kill them all. With a flash of his eyes, he saw two figures fleeing at top speed in the distance. The two of them revealed that they were all at the divine realm. One of them was at the peak of the divine realm, while the other was only at the mid-stage of the divine realm. Even their speed was maintained at the peak of the divine realm. Obviously, Wang Weijin was still hiding. It could be said that she had kept a low profile to the extreme. Want to leave? You have to ask us first. At this moment, true Lord Li Zhen was also in high spirits. He shouted loudly and immediately attacked. At the same time, true Lord Ling Coffin, true Lord Bai, true Lord Jinyu, true Lord Push Sword, and the others also reacted in an instant and blocked the many cultivators. Boom, boom, boom. Heaven and earth trembled, and the void trembled. Under the terrifying power, the sound traveled 100 miles. Dozens of miles away, the disciples of the various sects who had long been prepared had been patiently waiting for the situation here. At this moment, seeing the great array break, their eyes immediately revealed incomparable joy. It's broken. The true devil sect's great array has been broken. Everyone, follow me and kill. A sharp and deep voice rang out, and immediately after, cultivators from the various sects rushed towards the true devil sect like lightning. The decisive battle has begun. Let's charge! The disciples of the various sects, rogue cultivators, and even many people who were scheming in their hearts all moved out at this moment. The great battle had officially begun. The core of the true devil sect's spiritual vein must belong to the entire true Devil Mountain region, the place with the most abundant spiritual energy. Even though this place had been modified by the true devil sect, and with the help of the formation, the spirit energy had turned into devil energy, it could still be deduced from the aura of the spirit energy. While flying at a high speed, Wang Weijin quickly explained. Understood, Ziyue replied. Naturally, he knew that the core of the spirit vein was definitely the place with the most abundant spiritual energy. For example, the Qingshu mountain spirit vein of the Qingshu sect. The core of the spirit vein was also an important place, and there had always been experts guarding it. Therefore, there would definitely be battles on their trip. The number of souls has reached 97 million. Immediately after, Ziyue's gaze quickly fell on his attribute panel, and a trace of light flashed past his eyes. There were only 3 million left from the number of 97 million. Even he was shocked by the speed of the increase. In just a short 100 breaths of time, his soul energy had increased by 60 to 70 million. It could not be said to be a small amount. However, thinking about it before, even though they were mainly focused on breaking the array foundation, the casualties on both sides were equally tragic. However, my own immortal technique has already reached the peak of the divine realm, and all of my great abilities have already been upgraded to the great perfection stage. Although the shadow domain has not reached the great perfection stage, it has not yet reached the great perfection stage. I can't use soul energy to upgrade it. It seems that the number of souls breaking through 100 million is inevitable. That's good as well. The current me is already enough to protect myself. The upgrade of the attribute panel is also a good thing for me. Ziyue's thoughts raced, but he still consumed another 2 million soul energy, recovering all the energy he had consumed from using the great sacred art to its peak. Then, he watched helplessly as his soul energy increased rapidly. 95 million, 96 million, 97 million. until it reached 100 million. Data optimization in progress. Please wait. Once again, his gaze fell on the attribute panel, and Ziyue's face suddenly flashed with a hint of as expected. The number of souls has reached 100 million. The attribute panel has indeed been upgraded again. I wonder what new functions will be added to me this time. Ziyue was overjoyed, but he could not help but have a trace of anxiety and anticipation. He knew that every time the attribute panel was upgraded, its functions and application would undergo a transformation. For example, the enlightenment time previously was of great help to him. If it were not for the enlightenment time, the time he took to create the cultivation method would definitely be greatly delayed. This time, he was really looking forward to the changes that would occur after the attribute panel was upgraded. There will be results in a month. No rush. I'll just wait patiently. Ziyue comforted, and his mood quickly calmed down. Someone is chasing behind us. Just at this moment, Wang Weijun suddenly shouted and reminded him. Ziyue's heart skipped a beat. He quickly turned his head and quickly recognized the person's identity. It was Demon Lord Chiemo, an early-stage Golden Core Realm demonic cultivator. His heart immediately relaxed. As long as it was not Demon Lord Jun Hao chasing after him, he would not care at all. After all, Demon Lord Jun Hao was the sect leader of the true devil sect. His demonic cultivation had already reached the late-stage Golden Core Realm, and he had the spatial treasure True Devil Paradise with him. In addition to the many foundations of the true devil sect, if he were to unleash his full strength, his strength would probably not be weaker than an ordinary expert at the peak of the Golden Core Realm. He naturally did not want to go against him. But I can't write the third chapter. I'll push it to tomorrow. Sorry. Chapter 565. However, although this Demon Lord Chiemo was not weak either, he was especially good at speed, comparable to the speed of a peak middle stage or his core stage expert. However, not to mention Ziyue's own fighting strength, there was still a peak Aura's core stage by his side, Wang Weijun, who was known as the #1 person in the cloud-piercing mountain range. Even though the other party's 5 decay had descended, and his strength did not seem to be at its peak, his realm was still there, and his fighting strength was still extremely terrifying. In front of such an existence, no matter how strong the Demon Lord Chiemo was, he could still easily suppress him. At this time, Ziyue was also looking forward to seeing how powerful Wang Weijun was when he truly made his move. Stop them. Demon Lord Chiemo's speed was extremely fast. His body swayed slightly, like a fish swimming in a large river, appearing extremely exquisite and mysterious. The distance between him and Ziyue and the others was rapidly shrinking. 3,000 feet, 2,800 feet, 2,500 feet. At the same time, following a shout, Devil Cultivator S also rushed out one after another from the true devil sect, revealing all sorts of methods to stop him. Ziyue was very calm. He only controlled his flying sword to block the attacks, blocking them one by one, and killing the Devil Cultivator South that were extremely close to him. As for Wang Weijun, he had clearly already made plans to kill this demon, Lord Chiemo. Not only did he maintain his attacking techniques at the middle stage of the Divine Realm, even his speed seemed to have slowed down because of these attacks. Even when he blocked the attacks, he still seemed to be in a rather sorry state. Ziyue was speechless. He never thought that the other party's strength would be so high, yet his actions were so wretched. If he didn't already know the other party's identity, he really might have been confused by him. It was also because of this that Ziyue seemed to stand out. Many of the attacks landed on his body. 2,500 feet, 20,000 feet, 15,000 feet. With his speed slowing down, the distance between Demon Lord Chiemo and Ziyue became closer and closer. Soon, they were within his attack range. Die! In an instant, Demon Lord Chiemo coldly said. The black spear in his hand turned into a bolt of lightning, fiercely thrusting towards Ziyue. Huff, huff! The long spear streaked across the air, and a black ripple immediately flashed through the air. Its speed was astonishing. Senior Wang, with Wang Weijun by his side, and naturally would not take it head-on. With a low shout, his body flashed and retreated to the side. "Leave it to me." Only then did Wang Weijin let out a chuckle. The golden core yuan qi in his body circulated and suddenly exploded. In an instant, his aura rose from the middle stage of the divine realm to the peak of the divine realm, then the gold core realm, the middle stage of the gold core realm, the late stage of the gold core realm, and finally the peak of the gold core realm. Immediately afterward, he stretched out his hand like a divine dragon stretching out its claws. Immediately, a huge but solid claw appeared in the void. The claw grabbed the spear that was rushing at him at an extremely fast speed. Only a sizzling sound could be heard, but the spear did not move at all. It was firmly grasped by his hand. The palm didn't stop and continued to charge towards Demon Monarch GMO without slowing down. This Demon Lord GMO was stunned, and his eyes widened. He never thought that the old man, whose aura was as weak as a candle in the wind, would actually burst out with such a violent and terrifying aura. Peak of the Aurus Core Realm? He was actually an expert at the peak of the Aurus Core Realm. Wang Weijin. You are Wang Weijin of the Clear Void sect? With a quiver, Demon Lord Chiemo suddenly reacted, and his soul almost left his body. Facing Wang Weijin, the #1 expert in the cloud-piercing mountain range, even their true devil sect master, Demon Lord Jin Shao, was extremely fearful. Only after confirming that the other party was not around did he dare to attack the experts of the various sections. The difference between him and the sect master was like the difference between clouds and mud, let alone facing Wang Weijin, who was even stronger than the sect master. Therefore, at this moment, as if it was his instinct, he hurriedly used the soul-burning forbidden technique and fled in the direction he came from with a speed far faster than before. However, although his speed was fast, and under the soul-burning forbidden technique, it was comparable to a late-stage Aurus Core Realm cultivator flying at full speed. However, in front of Wang Weijin, it was still too slow. The claw flashed like lightning and quickly rushed behind Demon Lord Chiemo. Then it slightly opened, and the spear in the claw suddenly turned and stabbed out. Under the infusion of terrifying power, the black spear broke through Demon Lord Chiemo's defense in an instant. Then, it evolved into an incomparably exquisite mystery and directly pointed at a certain part of his body, piercing through his Aurus core and finally piercing out from his dantian. Demon Lord Chiemo's body suddenly shook, and he couldn't help but lower his head. He clearly saw the black spear that pierced through him, and it was so familiar. On this black spear, he felt a sense of intimacy that was connected to his heart. This was his natal magic treasure, the netherworld god-killing spear. But at this moment, it was his own natal magic treasure that pierced his Aurus core and killed him. You might not believe it, but I was killed by my own natal magic treasure. As this strange thought flashed through his mind, he was quickly engulfed by the soul-devouring power of the netherworld god-killing spear. His soul, blood, and blood were all devoured. Dead. The early-stage Aurus Core Realm expert, Demon Lord Chiemo, had fallen. As expected of Wang Weijin, a peak Aurus Core Realm expert. Although this move is not as exquisite as the great abilities I used. After all, I have already cultivated those great abilities to the great perfection realm. Their realms are actually very high. However, the power contained in this attack was too terrifying. It was as if it was crushing dry weeds. Any struggle or resistance would be easily broken. This was the power of a peak Aurus Core Realm expert. Although I can also reach such a level in terms of attack power by using the heaven patching technique, I can't do it as easily as him. Most importantly, he can unleash unlimited power and display such terrifying combat power. As for me, because my stats panel is in the process of being upgraded, I can't use it. If I only rely on the power of my divine sense, I can at most maintain it for 10 breaths. After 10 breaths, my divine sense will be exhausted, and I can only wait for death. The gap between them is not small. Ziyue couldn't help but sigh when he saw his opponent kill Demon Lord Chimo easily. Although his combat power could barely reach this level, the time he could unleash it was limited. Naturally, he couldn't compare with his opponent. Of course, there was a big gap between him and his opponent, so it was normal to have such a result. He wouldn't belittle himself because of this. His battle prowess at the deity realm could be said to be unprecedented, even if no one could surpass him in the future. Demon Lord Chimo is dead? He was killed by him. Wang Weijin. He is Wang Weijin. Run. Run. The surrounding demonic cultivators who were attacking Ziyue and the others were panicking at this moment. Their faces were pale, and they hurriedly fled in all directions. Humph! It's too late to escape now. Wang Weijin snorted coldly. With a thought, an incomparably tyrannical territory power spread out in an instant. In the blink of an eye, within a radius of 10,000 feet, all the surrounding demonic cultivators were trapped in his domain. Even the God Realm cultivators couldn't break free from his domain power. Their speed in the domain became extremely slow. Immediately after, Wang Weijin used his mind, and instantly, a gray light swept through his domain. Sizzle. In the blink of an eye, all the cultivators fell to the ground without any breath. The domain of a peak Golden Core Realm expert is much stronger than an ordinary Golden Core Realm expert. With such strength, even if I also had a domain, I would still be suppressed. Although it wouldn't affect my movements, my attacks would be weakened by the power of the domain. At most, it can reach 80% of my full strength. This is the huge gap between the realms. It's no wonder those demonic cultivators were killed so easily, as if they were made of wood. Ziyue compared silently. He had a better understanding of Wang Weijin's strength. He also understood that he wasn't weaker than Wang Weijin in terms of attack, speed, and even defense. However, in terms of overall strength, there was still a gap between him and a true peak Golden Core Realm expert. This was the difference between the domain power and the realms. Equals, let's continue. The commotion here should have attracted Demon Lord Junhao's attention. We need to quickly enter the depths of the spirit vein and retrieve its core. Wang Weijin bellowed and hurriedly brought by Ziyue to continue charging into the distance. At this moment, he didn't want to hide. He exploded with full speed and disappeared from the spot like a flash of light. That direction, that aura, it's so strong. It's Wang Weijin. That old man really came? Oh no, Demon Lord Chimo's aura disappeared. Did he die? Demon Lord Junhao, who was fighting with true Monarch Li Jun and the others, suddenly changed his expression. He looked into the distance, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. But soon, a cold smile appeared on his face. Looking at the direction he's rushing towards, it's obvious that he's after the core of the spirit vein. However, it's not that easy to snatch the core of the spirit vein from it. It has been sleeping near our true devil sex spirit vein for so long. It's time for it to do something for us. It would be best if we could kill or severely injure Wang Weijin. With that thought, he ignored Wang Weijin's direction and continued fighting with Li Jun and the others. Demon Lord Junhao was indeed the sect leader of the true devil sect. He was a top expert in the late Golden Core realm. Even if he fought true Monarch Li Jun, true Monarch Bai, and true Monarch Ku Jing alone, he wasn't at a disadvantage. He displayed the peerless demeanor of a demon lord. Chapter 566. On the other side, many Gold Core realm experts also sensed the sudden burst of aura in the distance. Their hearts were moved, and they had some guesses. However, when the battle began, no one cared about the situation in the distance. They all threw it to the back of their minds in an instant and fought with their opponents. From time to time, there would be cultivators dying, but more and more people would join the battlefield. The addition of countless cultivators made this place like a meat grinder, and the casualties were huge. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth here is the densest. Let's go in from here. Wang Weijin checked the surrounding situation. Her eyes flashed, and she quickly led Ziyue directly into the ground. In the land of the spirit vein, the ground was incomparably hard, but in front of Wang Weijian, no matter how hard the soil was, it was easily broken. Soon, they had drilled 300 meters into the ground. He immediately sensed that there were thick, root-like branches crisscrossing in the soil. There was also a rich and pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth, which was emitted from these crisscrossing branches and roots, nourishing the entire true Devil Mountain. This is the spirit vein. These branches are actually equivalent to spiritual energy channels, spreading spiritual energy in all directions. Because this place is close to the core of the spirit vein, even the branches themselves are incomparably thick. Moreover, after being nourished by spiritual energy for many years, coupled with the terrifying spiritual energy, the branches themselves are incomparably hard. Ordinary God Realm cultivators can't cut them in a short period of time. Wang Weijian explained as she led Ziyue deeper. The small branches were only as thick as an arm, but the big ones were like heavenly pillars. In particular, one of the main veins was very wide. Ziyue could even feel that there was an endless amount of spiritual energy gushing out from it in all directions. Isn't the spirit vein itself a spiritual stone? Ziyue suddenly asked in surprise. He only knew how to judge the grade of the spirit vein before, but he didn't specifically investigate what the spirit vein's essence was. At this moment, he quickly discovered that the main veins and branches were actually made of spiritual stones. Moreover, they were at least mid-grade spirit stones. The thicker the branch vein and the closer it was to the main vein, the higher the grade of the spirit stones. Not only that, but he also discovered that many of the stones scattered underground had already reached the level of low-grade spirit stones. Some of the spirit chi contained in the soil seemed to be very abundant. It only needed to be slightly compressed to form spirit stones. At this moment, it was as if they were in a sea of spiritual stones. With a casual grab, they could grab a few low-grade spiritual stones. Actually, spirit stones are essentially some mountain rocks and soil. They are slowly formed after being nourished by the spiritual chi of heaven and earth over the years. The spirit vein was the place with the most abundant and pure spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Over the years, the surroundings were naturally filled with spirit stones. Spirit veins served as a channel for spirit chi. So naturally, they were filled with spirit stones, and each of them was of an extremely high grade. However, because the spirit veins were connected to many places, ordinary cultivators wouldn't use them as spirit stones. The only way is to sever the spirit vein and take its core. Wang Weijian explained, her face revealing a trace of coldness. This true Devil Mountain spirit vein was too far away from the Clear Void sect. Furthermore, the 4 great immortal sects were also unwilling to see another rank 5 spirit vein appear in the cloud-piercing mountain range, thus giving birth to another immortal sect that was comparable to the 4 great immortal sects. Therefore, they had long since made preparations to exterminate the devil sect and divide up all the resources in the spirit vein. The core of the spirit vein and the spirit stones in the spirit vein had long been regarded as their belongings. Ziyue silently nodded and did not say anything. Immortal cultivators did not have the saying of sacrificing themselves for others. The competition for resources was even more cruel and vicious. Although the true devil sect was the enemy of the various immortal sects, the start of this great war naturally involved the competition and distribution of huge resources and benefits. The two of them went deeper. The closer they got to the core of the spirit vein, the harder the surrounding mud and stones became. When they reached 1,000 meters underground, the surrounding mud and stones were almost all spirit stones. Even if some of them did not reach the level of spirit stones, they were still extremely spiritual objects. Even with Ziyue's temperament, at this moment, he couldn't help but want to let go of the restrictions and smash these pieces of mud and stones into his storage bag. At the very least, it could be used as a spiritual soil to cultivate all kinds of spiritual plants. Suddenly, the space beneath them was empty, and they suddenly appeared in a huge tunnel. The tunnel continued to extend underground, but there was an incomparably dense concentration of heaven and earth spirit chi. This passage should be directly connected to the core of the spirit vein. It saved us a lot of trouble. Wang Weijin laughed faintly and hurriedly brought Ziyue along the passage. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. After a few breaths of time, an incomparably thick spirit vein that emitted the color of glass appeared in front of them. Main vein, this was the main vein. Moreover, it was the main vein that was close to the core of the spirit vein. Not only Ziyue, but even Wang Weijin's breathing became hurried. Quick, do it. From here, send out a primary magnetic slash and cut this place. Wang Weijin shouted with a face full of surprise. He was a little surprised that not a single demonic cultivator had appeared. After all, the spirit vein, especially the main vein area, was the most important place for an immortal sect. Not only would they set up a formation to seal it, but there would also be experts guarding it at all times. However, when he thought about how even Demon Lord Jinhua was forced to fight, he was not surprised. Not to mention, the core of the spirit vein was right in front of him. No matter how great the danger was, he would not hesitate. All right, Bai Ziyue didn't hesitate. With a thought, the divine consciousness in his body began to circulate. Immediately, a black origin magnetic line silently gathered in the void. Wang Weijin's eyes widened as she watched. This time, he watched his opponent use the great metamagnetic slash and carefully sense the aura within it. Only then did he vaguely sense the endless sharpness contained within it. He couldn't help but sigh. As expected, it's the great metamagnetic slash at the perfect level. I don't know how he cultivated it. He's actually able to cultivate this great divine ability, which even Golden Core experts find difficult to cultivate, to such a profound level with his divine realm cultivation. Ziyue's expression did not change. He stretched out his hand and slashed. In the blink of an eye, the great origin magnetic slash reached its maximum speed. Without a sound, it slashed through the air and landed directly on the huge main spirit vein. Chi! A crisp sound was heard. The main spirit vein, which even beginner Golden Core experts would find difficult to break, was immediately cut in half. Rumble. Then, heaven and earth roared and the earth trembled. It was as if heaven and earth were falling apart. The entire passageway was distorted and cracked in an instant. Countless rocks collapsed and rolled violently. At the place where the spiritual vein was broken, surges of surging and terrifying spiritual energy gushed out, turning into spiritual energy rain that directly poured onto the ground. Roar! At this moment, a shocking roar was heard. Then, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly rose from not far away. It quickly smashed countless rocks and swept out from the passageway, not far away. Then, at the first moment, it saw 2 figures not far away, who were somewhat stunned. In an instant, endless anger jumped out of its eyes. Humans die. Without thinking, it quickly rushed over. What kind of monster is this? A dragon? Ziyue was shocked. At this time, what appeared in front of them was a terrifying existence with 2 horns on its head. Its whole body was silver white, like a divine dragon. Dragon, this is the Dragon. It was born with the bloodline of the divine beast True Dragon. Although it is not a divine beast, its talent is extremely strong, far better than a monster of the same level. It is much stronger than a flood dragon of the same level. It is said that it was a spiritual beast raised by the 5th generation True Devil sect master 7,000 years ago. I didn't expect it to still be alive, and it has reached the late-stage Golden Core realm and is staying in the core of the spirit vein. Wang Weijin's face could not help but become a little ugly. At the same time, she quickly made a move. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A total of 5 flying swords, each of which had reached the level of a high-grade Golden Core treasure, quickly rushed out. They turned into a stream of light and fiercely collided with the Dragon. Ziyue was shocked and hurriedly flew back to avoid it. Rumble. The void trembled and the endless amount of spirit stones in the surroundings crumbled. They immediately turned into a terrifying amount of heaven and earth spiritual chi and drifted away in the void. How dare you destroy the cultivation place? You must die. The Yin dragon roared angrily and spat out dragon flames in the air. It turned into a black light and charged directly at Wang Weijin. At the same time, two golden lights suddenly rushed out of its nostrils. The two golden lights quickly turned and swept directly at Ziyue like two flying knives. At this moment, it was extremely angry. The core of the spirit vein had long been used as its own cultivation cave and had been living here for 7,000 years. It was also because of the superior environment that it was able to cultivate all the way to the high-grade golden core realm. Naturally, it could not tolerate anyone destroying this place. But now, the main spirit vein had been cut in half, and the grade of the spirit vein would be greatly reduced. The total amount of spiritual chi that it absorbed and the essence of the spirit source would be greatly reduced. This directly affected its cultivation. "Be careful," Wang Weijin shouted and stretched out her hand. Immediately, a jade bottle appeared in her hand. The jade bottle spun and expanded with the wind. It expanded rapidly and directly swallowed the entire dragon flame. Then, with a slight tremble, it blocked the attack of the Yin dragon. Ziyue's face changed. He did not care about hiding his strength. Lightning flashed on his body, and his body flashed like lightning, instantly rushing to the distance. He dodged the two golden lights. Chapter 567. This speed? Wang Weijin looked up and was a little surprised. Adept Dark North's explosive speed was actually not the slightest bit inferior to his own. But at this time, he could not care about anything else. He stretched out his hand, and the 5 upper-grade gold core flying swords swayed again and merged with each other to form a sparkling and translucent longsword. He waved the longsword and rushed out quickly. The sword's shape was fleeting, but it was extremely fast. The Yin dragon tried to dodge, but the passage was too narrow. Although it avoided its vital parts, its body was still pierced by the sword. Boom! When the sword landed on its body, it carried an astonishing penetrative power. It directly broke open its scales and pierced into its body. The terrifying destructive power contained in the long sword wantonly destroyed its body and burned a large part of its flesh into ashes. Roar! Under the intense pain, the Yin dragon was furious and swung its long tail. Swish, swish, swish! A shadow flashed across the void. The mud and stones in the passageway, which were completely made up of spirit stones, were instantly crushed into powder. A huge amount of spirit chi spread out, nourishing his flesh and blood, and actually allowed his injuries to quickly recover. Cultivating in the core of the spirit vein and consuming the essence of the spirit source over the years not only allowed its strength to soar rapidly, but even its physique had also undergone a special transformation, allowing it to quickly recover from its injuries with the help of the spirit energy. At the same time, its tail swung as fast as lightning and rushed to Wang Weijin. Wang Weijin's repulsive force and the extreme speed of the peak gold core realm seemed to be useless at this moment. Bang! Wang Weijin only had time to bring out a golden shield, but her body was still sent flying by the impact of the incomparably huge force. This beast is not weak. Wang Weijin snorted and quickly sent a voice transmission to Ziyue. I will hold it back first. You go and cut off the spirit vein on the other side as soon as possible. Once we get the core of the spirit vein, our goal will be achieved. With that, Wang Weijin's body swayed and attacked again, fighting with the Yin dragon. Understood, Ziyue responded and carefully avoided the battlefield. Then, with a thought, the flying sword in his body quickly rushed out. With a slight slash, it directly drilled out a hole at the edge of the passageway. Then, he quickly rushed to the other side of the main vein. Long ago, he had sensed that the core of the spirit vein was located in the Yin dragon's lair. At this time, all he had to do was rush to the other side of the nest and used the great magnetic slash to cut off the main vein. Naturally, he would be able to retrieve the spirit vein core. However, Ziyue had only drilled halfway when he immediately felt a crushing force. Immediately after, he saw a dragon claw reach out from the side with the strength to split mountains. Ziyue's figure turned sluggish, and he hurriedly retreated. Rumble. A large number of spirit stones burst open, causing the surrounding space to become even wider. It also allowed Ziyue to reappear in front of the Yin Dragon. All of you are courting death. The Yin Dragon roared, and under the pressure of its thick and powerful aura, its body swayed, and the dragon tail swung again. Chi chi chi, divine dragon tail whip. Like lightning, it rushed in front of Ziyue. Lightning flashed on Ziyue's body, and he immediately retreated. At this time, Wang Weijin suddenly struck out with her claw, which collided with the dragon tail. The void froze slightly, and then suddenly exploded. They were actually evenly matched. This Yin Dragon is indeed very powerful. Ziyue sighed, and he also felt that it was a little tricky. It seems that in order to intercept the core of the spirit vein, we must first get rid of the Yin Dragon. Later, I will be the main attack, and you will use your skills to support me. Wang Weijin's face was pale as she transmitted her voice. She stretched out her hand, and the long sword formed by the combination of 5 flying swords instantly turned into a flowing light and viciously stabbed at the Yin Dragon. However, the Yin Dragon's speed was also very fast. This attack only injured the Yin Dragon again, but it was not fatal, and it did not affect its combat strength. Okay, Ziyue responded. Seeing this, he knew that if he did not use some skills, it would be difficult to kill the Yin Dragon in a short time. With a thought, a human shadow suddenly appeared on his body. The shadow lightly shouted, and immediately, a gray-green light rushed out and entered the Yin Dragon's head. Innate divine power, absent-mindedness. The Yin Dragon's body immediately became sluggish, and it suddenly stopped. After using his innate divine power, Ziyue did not stop, but hurriedly stretched out his hand. In the void, immediately, countless bright sword lights turned into flowing light and rushed into the sky. Then, when they reached a certain height, they quickly fell and formed a huge sword-shaped cage, which was completely covered by countless sword lights, and directly sealed the Yin Dragon in it. Roar! The Yin Dragon did not come to its senses until now. It roared and viciously swung its tail. The sword wall immediately shook and quickly dimmed, but it still did not break the sword wall. Good chance. Wang Weijin's eyes lit up, and a misty green light quickly rushed out from the gold core. The green light brushed past and immediately fell on the Yin Dragon's head. The Yin Dragon, who was desperately trying to break the sword wall, immediately froze and felt an incomparable pain in its soul. This was also a soul attack. Then, Wang Weijin's long sword lashed out again and evolved the great 5 elements sword of destruction and quickly stabbed. Boom! This sword was astonishingly fast, and it quickly touched the Yin Dragon's head. The strength went straight into its head, and a terrifying destructive power burst out, immediately crushing the inside of the Yin Dragon's head. The Yin Dragon only felt that its head was suddenly roaring, and the connection between the consciousness and the gold core and its body was cut off, and it suddenly panicked. The gold core, which was the size of a millstone, immediately rushed out from somewhere in the Yin Dragon's body like a flowing light. With just one hit, it broke Ziyue's sword wall, and then it quickly fled in the direction away from Wang Weijin. Does it think that I'm easy to bully? Ziyue's eyes flashed with a strange light, and he smiled faintly. He stretched out his hand, and a ball of spiritual light suddenly rushed out and fell on the monster core that was rushing in his direction. Sizzle! In an instant, the spiritual light on the monster core was withdrawn, and it was suddenly sealed. Although the power of the monster core quickly broke through the seal, Ziyue's hand immediately grabbed, and under the terrifying shock of power, the consciousness that belonged to the Een dragon on the gold core was wiped out. Without control, the spiritual light on the gold core was withdrawn, and Ziwe stretched out his hand and put it into the storage bag. Not far away, Wang Weijin saw this, and her face twitched and said with some pain, "The gold core, it's mine." Ziwe said, "But the Een dragon mainly depends on me," Wang Weijin said, and she was a little speechless. If not for Ziwe's help, even if he was stronger, it would be impossible for him to kill the Een dragon in a short time. At this time, his face darkened, and he hurriedly rushed to the Een dragon's corpse and put it away. The Een dragon's strength had reached the late gold core stage, and whether it was its flesh, scales, dragon horns, dragon tendons, or dragon bones, they were all extremely valuable. Not to mention that he had also obtained the Een dragon storage bag. But the Een dragon gold core was even more valuable. If used to refine elixirs, it was extremely effective for increasing the strength of a gold core stage expert, and it could also be used to refine magic treasures. Although the 5 flying swords on him were all high-grade gold core treasures, but with the help of the Een dragon gold core, at least 1 or 2 flying swords could be upgraded to supreme-grade gold core treasures, and it would be a huge boost to his strength. Unfortunately, it was taken away by North Ming's spiritual master. He wanted to help, but thinking of the means and potential of the other party, especially the speed that he had just displayed, he could not help but mutter, and he did not have absolute confidence. Once the other party escaped, the Qingshu sect would provoke a world-shocking enemy. Therefore, after hesitating for a while, he finally gave up. "Let's go, don't forget our business," Wang Weijin said in a low voice, and hurriedly called Ziwe to rush into the depths of the passageway. Because of the great battle, the underground was completely crushed, and endless spiritual qi of heaven and earth emerged. The energy was unbelievably terrifying. Ziwe was also a little vigilant, so while absorbing and recovering the power of his divine sense, he followed Wang Weijin to the other side of the passageway. Soon, they saw an extremely spacious cave in front of them. This was obviously the Een dragon's resting place. In addition to the high-grade spirit stones, there were also stalks of spirit grass growing. These spirit grass were contaminated with the Een dragon's aura and grew on top of the spirit stones, so their grades were quite extraordinary. The worst was 3rd grade, and there were many 4th grade and above. Dragon's beard grass, real dragon grass, spiritual source flower. However, what really caught the attention of Ziwe and Wang Weijin was the huge crystallized spirit stones that connected the 2 sides of the main vein in the center. The crystallized spirit stones were only in the outermost area, but the quality of the crystallized spirit stones had reached the highest grade. In the innermost area, there were wisps of unique aura that were higher than that of ordinary spirit stones. The core of the spiritual vein. This is the core of the 5th grade spiritual vein. The highest grade spirit stones contain extremely precious immortal stones and immortal crystals that even primordial soul realm experts value and are reluctant to use. Only the 5th grade spiritual vein can produce such treasures. Wang Weijin could not help but be ecstatic. The reason why the Qingshu sect's spiritual vein, which was full of spiritual qi, had not been upgraded to the middle 5th grade spiritual vein was that it lacked the immortal stones and immortal crystals produced in the core of the 5th grade spiritual vein. The production of immortal crystals was extremely difficult. It required years of accumulation, and more importantly, it required extremely pure energy to transform. The energy in the Qingshu sect's spiritual vein was abundant and very pure. However, due to the lack of time and the lack of immortal crystals, its grade had remained at the peak of the beginner 5th grade for hundreds of years. Now, as long as the immortal crystals were replenished, the grade of the Qingshu sect's spiritual vein would be upgraded very soon. As for him, a great opportunity would descend upon him. He would have the chance to ascend to the legendary primordial soul stage. Naturally, he would be overjoyed and excited. Chapter 568. Let's use the Great Magnetic Slash here and cut off the main vein on this side. Wang Weijin quickly calmed down and pointed to the main vein beside the spirit stone crystal. Ziyue nodded when he heard this. With a thought, he activated his divine thought, and a black thread silently gathered in the void, then flashed slightly. Chi! Everything passed by. It directly cut the incomparably thick main vein, which was completely composed of spirit stones, into two halves. Rumble. In an instant, the world rumbled and the void shook. Boundless mountains and rocks collapsed. Surging and terrifying energy gushed out from the core of the spiritual vein. Instantly, the entire world seemed to be immersed in an endless amount of dense spiritual qi. Bai Ziyue only took a deep breath, and it was as if a pure energy had entered his body, allowing him to quickly recover the energy he had expended to cast the magnetic slash. Good. This is a 4th grade warship. We're even. Wang Weijin was overjoyed and threw out a storage bag. Then his figure flashed, and he directly rushed to the core of the spirit vein. With a slight shake, he put away the entire core of the spirit vein. Then he did not hesitate at all and quickly rushed to the sky. Ziyue took the storage bag and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If the other party suddenly attacked him at this time, it would be difficult for him to deal with. After all, he was also a member of the Qingshu sect. Not only did he have acquaintances in the Qingshu sect, but he also benefited a lot from the sect. He really could not bear to take revenge. Then, Ziyue opened the storage bag and scanned it with his divine thought. Then he was stunned. Oh no, I've been tricked. Ziyue's chest tightened, and he quickly took out the warship from the storage bag. Under the investigation of his divine thought, the knot in his chest dissipated slightly. This warship was indeed a 4th grade warship, but it was obviously very damaged, as if it had been through countless battles. There were countless sword and saber marks on it. This was especially true for one of the saber marks. It had nearly cut the entire warship in half. Although it had been repaired, the formation inside had not been completely restored. In terms of speed, there isn't much of an effect. At full strength, I can erupt with extreme speed comparable to a late-stage golden core cultivator. But in terms of defense, it was only capable of blocking the full force attack of a half-step golden core realm expert. In terms of attack, it was even weaker. It was estimated that even a cultivator at the peak of the deity realm would find it difficult to kill it. But fortunately, it could be used. Although it was not as good as a true Grade 4 warship, it could still move unhindered on the battlefield. However, if it was only used for traveling, it was still pretty good. If that's the case, it's not hard to understand why Wang Wei would run away so quickly. He's afraid that I'll discover the problem with the warship and hold me accountable. Ziyue analyzed carefully, and his expression quickly calmed down. When he had first chosen this warship, it was more for the sake of traveling. He really didn't place much importance on defense and offense. With that thought in mind, Ziyue put away the warship once again. Then, with a flash of his body, he quickly gathered all the spiritual materials around him. Dragon beer grass, true dragon grass, spirit origin flower. There's even a dragon origin fruit. This dragon origin fruit has already matured. Just one of them is probably enough to recover half of a golden core realm cultivator's core energy. With the density of my spiritual sense, I should be able to recover at least 80%. Ziyue's spiritual sense was pure and dense. However, since he had not reached the golden core realm, he admitted that he could not compare to a true golden core realm expert. He picked it up and carefully put it away. Very quickly, all the spiritual materials in the surroundings, except for some that were not ripe yet, had been collected by him. He had harvested a total of 3 dragon origin fruits, more than 20 stalks of dragon beard grass, true dragon grass, and other 4th grade spiritual materials, and more than 150 stalks of 3rd grade spiritual materials. However, the value of these things was not low. Next up, it's these spirit veins. These are all good things. Although the core of the spirit vein had been taken away by Wang Weijin, this main vein that spanned the entire True Devil sect was completely made up of spirit stones. Furthermore, the lowest grade is a high-grade spirit stone. Ziyue's face was filled with joy and excitement. Without any hesitation, he rushed to the side of the main vein that had been cut. Then his eyes suddenly lit up, and his breathing suddenly became hurried. He whispered, "Spirit Origin Essence. This is Spirit Origin Essence?" That's right. After all, it's a 5th grade spirit vein, and it's a main vein that's close to the core of the spirit vein. Naturally, there will be Spirit Origin Essence. Ziyue looked at the opening of the main meridian and the pool of marrow liquid that was slowly flowing backwards. Without any hesitation, he hurriedly took out an enormous jade bottle magic treasure and stored all the essence of the spirit source inside. Then, without pausing, he quickly rushed to the other side of the incision. As expected, he obtained another batch of Spirit Origin Essence, which almost filled the entire jade bottle. This Spirit Origin Essence is the essence of spiritual energy. Its innate quality is extremely high, and a small drop of it contains a terrifying amount of energy. It can reconstruct one's body and refine one's mind. In this bottle, there are over 100 kilograms of Spirit Origin Essence. It should be enough for me to reconstruct my entire body and make my mind even purer and stronger. Ziyue looked at the jade bottle and could not help but reveal a smile. This time, his harvest was truly enormous. Not to mention the fact that it was still increasing, the amount of soul energy he had right now was unimaginable. Not to mention the 4th grade warship, the Dragon Gold Core, and the 4th grade spirit materials. Just this Spirit Origin Essence made him feel that this trip was not in vain. Furthermore, there are also countless spirit stones. At this time, Ziyue once again looked at the spirit stones that had condensed together above the main vein. The outer layer was filled with middle-grade spirit stones, the middle was filled with high-grade spirit stones, and the center was filled with top-grade spirit stones. The value was shockingly high. Ziyue immediately continued to use the magnetic slash, continuously cutting the main meridians, and then directly storing them into his own storage bag. After one bag was filled, another bag was added. Ziyue did not have many things, but he had a lot of storage bags. But soon he began to feel that his storage bag was a little too small. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, he had filled all his storage bags to the brim. And this was under the condition that he had abandoned most of the items that were not of high value. Left with no choice, Ziyue could only regretfully give up and leave, looking back 3 times with every step he took. This was because he knew that there would not be many opportunities for him to crazily move spirit stones like this again. Rushing out of the ground again, Ziyue looked around and immediately discovered that the surrounding mountain terrain had undergone a huge change. Countless mountain rocks had collapsed, the earth had tilted up, and even some of the spirit veins branches were exposed, but there was not much spiritual energy emitted from them. Obviously, this was because the core of the spirit veins had been taken away, and they had lost their source of spiritual energy. Then, Ziyue looked in the direction of the battle. The battle was still going on, whether it was between high-level cultivators or low-level cultivators. Neither had stopped. The void was trembling, and the earth was shaking. A fierce battle had dyed the entire world red. The ground was covered with corpses. There were corpses everywhere. Most of them were from the demonic cultivators, but there were also many from the major celestial sects and rogue cultivators. Then, Ziyue's expression changed. A golden core realm expert had fallen. Ziyue quickly approached and could clearly sense that the auras of 5 golden core experts had completely disappeared. 3 of them were demonic cultivators, and 2 were cultivators from sections. One of them should be a golden core expert of the younger generation of the Sound of Thunder sect. It was said that he had reached the golden core realm less than 100 years ago. He seemed to be called Perfected Lord Jinping, but he had died at this moment. The other one was someone he was familiar with. Perfected Lord Mountain Crush. Perfected Lord Mountain Crush of the Tai E-Sword sect. His aura had also completely disappeared. When he thought of how Perfected Lord Mountain Crush had allowed Perfected Lord Qian Yuan to attack him, he actually had some small grudges in his heart and had thought of finding an opportunity to set him up. However, He did not expect perfected Lord Mountain Crush to be dead. A person's death was like a lamp being extinguished. Naturally, he would not care about that anymore. However, he could not help but sigh in his heart. Boom! Booms continued to sound. In the distant void, there were many figures flashing continuously, fighting until the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Around the battlefield, there were countless enlightened realm and god realm cultivators fighting with the demonic cultivators. All kinds of warships, formations, magic treasures, magical powers, talismans stirred up the world into chaos. With such a commotion and such chaotic spiritual energy movement, the spiritual energy in the body of a low-level cultivator would probably go berserk and cause a huge backlash as soon as he got close. However, Ziyue's gaze immediately turned to the battle at the Golden Core realm. At this moment, Wang Weijin had finally joined the battle and was attacking Demon Lord Zhenhua with perfected Lord Li Zhen. As for the other Golden Core experts, most of them were attacking the Demon Lord of the True Devil Sect with 2 or 3 people. From the looks of it, victory was only a matter of time. Kill! At this moment, Demon Lord Zhenhua let out a low roar. He stretched out his hand and slashed out like a sickle. It was as if it could split the heavens and the earth. Its power was unparalleled. Perfected Lord Li Zhen and Wang Weijin quickly dodged. However, Demon Monarch Zhen Zhao's attack seemed to have other plans as he rushed to the other side of the battlefield. Demon Monarch's spiritual coffin, who was besieging White-Bone Demon Monarch with True Lord Push Sword and True Lord Bai, felt his heart palpitate inexplicably. When he turned around, he happened to see this terrifying attack and hurriedly took out his Dharma treasure to block in front of him. However, he could not block it in time. With a groan, he was severely injured. Taking advantage of this opportunity, perfected Lord White-Bone quickly rushed out of the encirclement. He turned his White-Bone sword and killed several God Realm cultivators before meeting up with Demon Lord Zhenhua. Damn it! Perfected Lord Li Zhen's expression changed. Wang Weijin's expression was also ugly, especially Wang Weijin, who was extremely powerful. However, Demon Lord Zhenhua had the spatial magic treasure True Devil Grotto Heaven, which limited him greatly. As a result, Demon Lord Zhenhua dodged several of his attacks that were sure to succeed. However, Demon Lord Zhenhua could use this opportunity to extend his attack and land on other battlefields. Previously, he had used this method to severely injure perfected Lord Jinyu, which was why a Demon Lord found the opportunity to kill him. This time, if not for perfected Lord Push Sword and perfected Lord Bai, perfected Lord Link Coffin would have been in danger. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.